Good morning, Lafayette and the local area, Tippecanoe County, everybody around, all our Purdue fans. I am your host, Brian Burden, your winter weather expert, and I know a lot of you have a lot of questions about the storm potential coming in for Lafayette, for some of the main areas around. Maybe you have relatives who live south of here. There's a possibility because we've got like some varying systems, and the two different models didn't show the same thing yesterday. Even last week, it was off, and we talked about some of that as I extensively went into everything yesterday. And again, last week, I talked about this system being possibly south, possibly north. We'll see as we get closer and closer. Well, now we're getting closer and closer to the storm time frame, and it's moved from Tuesday all the way to Saturday, Sunday now. That's the big change, of course. It went south for a while. Now the models seem to maybe be coming closer to each other. We'll have to see what happens on that. I'll show you all the charts here shortly. The Purdue men took it on the chin last night. I'm still a little upset about that one. I stayed up to listen to it. At least I watched it on ESPN's little bug there to see what was going on. So I'm a little bummed about that. We'll talk about that. But mainly, of course, the weather is what we're really looking for here when you come to this show to Let's Talk Lafayette. It is what? Wednesday, January 21st, the dead of winter. We are pretty much at our coldest time of the year right now. And it's just one of those days where it's not so bad compared to where it's been, right? The temperature's been down near zero the last few mornings, but this morning here we are hovering around the freezing mark. We do have a potential for a little bit of light snow moving in here pretty quickly, and it'll move through pretty fast. And we talked a little bit about that yesterday, too. So I'm going to hit that front here shortly. Let's get right into the charts. We'll go right into the satellite pictures. We'll get right into some of the information that we'll be looking at, starting off with just the weather bug from MSN. It shows 31 degrees right now outside. And it does show that the potential, if you look at the little chart on the right, shows where the radar is, but I'll show you actual satellite picture here in a second. 31 degrees at 11 miles an hour. You look at the direction out of the southwest, hence the warmer temperatures, correct? Look at this high temperature, 42 today. So later in the day, after this little wave goes through, and this is the same wave we were talking about, I think a couple days ago, how it was like just to the north, just to the south, depending on which model you were talking at and which one you were looking at, to give you an idea of where it was going to go. And I said, well, probably some flurries with this, maybe some very, very light snow at the best. We would see a dusting. So that's kind of where we're at right now. Let's see where the charts are, and we'll tell you what's going to happen with that. Does show it getting cold, though. Remember, I said we were going to see some cold weather coming back into the picture. So this high today may be the only time we hit above 32 for a while. Matter of fact, it could be February. Let's take a look at the long range, what it's saying now on this. If you just look at the numbers, here we are, 29, 40, 10, 14 foot. I don't see a 30 in here anywhere besides today. All right, so the 21st, so it may be February before we see a temperature above freezing again after today, after the highs move up a little bit later on this afternoon and into the evening hours. Then we start to drop off and we reinforce the cold and bring it back into the picture. So let's start off with the satellite picture. Here's the front. You can kind of see it dragging along there pretty easily. Lots of high clouds with the system. Lafayette being right about here. There you go. And then there's a lot of clear skies behind the system. That'll help the sun get to us later this afternoon, start to warm us up along with that southwesterly wind. The low is up over probably southern Canada, just north of Lake Superior, or right in the area around Lake Superior, give or take a little bit. We'll see that on the charts too here in a second to pinpoint it a little more. And fairly quiet down to our south, although you're starting to see some rumblings. Now, let's think about how this works. The low is up to the north. There's a trailing system behind it. That's this. So the low's way up here to the north, and there's this trailing little trough behind it. And then if you kind of imaginary line, kind of push yourself back down towards Texas through Oklahoma down here, then you can see off in the area towards New Mexico, Arizona, where another low pressure system off the chart would pop up in the next couple of days, somewhere down there, as the front trails and goes down there. And you're starting to see some clouds and some moisture coming up from the south into Alabama, Louisiana. That's just the inklings. It's just kind of the first look at what could be happening. And I kind of think of it that way, as that's where this system's going to be coming from, the next one. Off to our north, though, nothing real major happening right here. Most of these clouds are off to our northwest, up over northern Iowa, southern Minnesota. Looks like the rotation right now is going to take them off into Michigan, and we're going to get into this nice open spot for most of the day today after the trailing little tail of this kind of comes through. And yes, there is precipitation with this. You can see it. There it is. Remember, Lafayette's right about here. And one model kind of showed the moisture up here. Another one showed it right about here. And I said, well, we're kind of in the middle. We're probably going to get the tail end of this thing. And we're just going to see some flurries or light snow as it passes through. That looks like that's all going to happen the next hour to 2 hours. And then it will be gone. There's nothing behind it back here. Nothing. So you can see how quickly it's moving across. It's not quite as fast as a thunderstorm, but it is right on our doorstep right now. So if you're outside, you might already be seeing some flurries and some potential there. I'm sure you're seeing clouds outside. And we will be seeing some of this moisture hitting the deck here in the next hour to 2 hours and then going through very rapidly. Good news is it's moving through so fast, there's no real accumulations to worry about. Could there be an icy patch of a road from this? Sure, it could be. But with our temperatures warming up, it seems like everything should be pretty good. The timing being a little later this morning has worked out nicely. Here it is 9 o'clock right now. So let's look at some local weather real quick. Here's Lafayette right here. Lafayette's reporting 32 degrees out at the runway. That's the airport at Purdue. Winds 220 at 8 miles an hour. There is some light snow being reported up near the lake. That's Gary up there to the north. And as we can see, South Bend's also reporting some light snow. And we saw that on the radar shot when it went through. Everybody in the 20s and 30s right now. So that's the kind of idea of what we have. Even down south, Evansville's at 34 still at the moment. So they're chilly also down south. So temperature is pretty consistent. Not a lot of snow popping up. We're kind of in between places. Rensselaer may be seeing some snow based on that radar shot. We'll go back to that real quick here. There's that radar shot. Maybe just starting to see some or just saw some. Up towards South Bend, they're reporting again, and Gary's reporting some of the light snow. So we'll see how much of this hits the ground. It's definitely going to be some flurries at the very least, and probably some very light snow with little to no accumulations. At best, a light dusting for most folks. Here's our charts. I'm going to look at the big picture first, kind of the big picture. And remember how I said you could kind of pinpoint the front here. Now, this is the HRRR. The HRRR has not said we were going to get any snow out of this. Through this. Yesterday, it showed nothing, and on Monday, the tail end of it kind of went this far out, and it really showed the snow staying to the north, and it's sticking with that right now. It does show moisture to the south. We kind of saw some of that in the cloud cover we looked at it on the SAT just a second or two ago, and as we start to move it forward, you kind of see how the tail end of the moisture could drag down through us, and then it kind of molds in with the rest of it, and you see how you can extend that line all the way back down, and now you're starting to see that you'll see some potential for some frontal systems potentially down here towards Texas later on in the next couple of days, and that's where that system's going to build from, the big system we're talking about. But in between, here we are this morning, the snow goes through, and this is like 11 o'clock, there's 12 o'clock. Boy, there's just nothing there. We're looking good. 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is where your chance for the sun to get in. This is where your chance for the southerly winds to get in. And then things start to change this evening as the next little clipper system dives down out of the north. And where is that this morning? That's some of that clouds we are seeing up in Minnesota trying to dive down and kind of clip us, so to speak. Now, that's not way we get the clipper systems. That's not the name of it. Clipper systems come from the fast-moving clipper ships of the 17 or 1800s back then. And so this is we call these Alberta clippers when they come racing down out of Canada from the Alberta area. and they usually have little to no snow with them, and it looks like there's just another chance for some light snow tonight as it goes through. This is the same as the forecast looked yesterday. Nothing's really changed here, just that chance. Big old high setting up, but look at the angle of our direction of winds coming out of the northwest to north, depending on where you're at through this with the high here. Tomorrow morning, this is 9Z. Let's go out to 12Z. 12Z is like 7 in the morning, and the big old high is southwest of us. And that means the big flow into and around and near us. Now, the good news is we had that cloud cover bust through last night or tonight, right? With that little wave of snow that goes through. That'll help as a blanket, but then how quickly does it clear out the skies and then the temperatures drop off for Thursday morning before they get real cold on Friday morning? Because here we are on Thursday, nothing's happening. All the snow is up to our north. We're not seeing anything locally. There's a little wave of maybe something coming off the lake once the winds turn to the north again. On Friday, that would be Thursday night around midnight. And then by the time we get to Friday morning, still no real snow, but look at the winds coming straight down the lake, straight out of the north, big high pressure off to our northwest. And we aren't even seeing the developing system yet to our south. We're starting to see inklings of it over here in the panhandle of Texas for the big storm for the weekend. And the isobars are close together, so some windy conditions. That's the black lines. The dashed blue lines are your ISO heights, and they are in the lower levels. Usually the freezing line is around 5,400, which is way down here. So you can kind of see just a generality is the 5,400 line to say 5,340, somewhere in there is where you'll see your temperatures drop below freezing most of the time. And you can bet Friday morning it's going to be rather chilly for sure when we look at the big picture here as it is like that. So let's go out to the NAM a little farther out. And this is the 6Z run. So this was a little earlier, and it goes out. It shows. Let's see how close the snow gets earlier on this one. So here we are this morning, and it too. See how it brings the snow in just a little closer to Lafayette, which is right here. Lafayette being right in that spot. It comes in closer, kind of nips us, and then keeps right on going by. And then here comes the next clipper tonight. And it's not as close. It doesn't bring in as much snow, which is still very, very just flurries tonight to a just very light accumulation, dusting at best again tonight. So don't expect any accumulations for tomorrow morning. And then the high settles in. So you see there's just subtle variations between the models. And then everything kind of stays to our north. And here comes the big old high. Look at there's the wind shifting around on Friday. Bam, coming straight out of the lake and then right towards us. That could drag in, depending on the angle, some snows, especially over towards Grissom, definitely up towards the lake itself because of the cold air coming over the water. And then the high kind of builds right on into Saturday. And look what's happening to the south of us. Here we are. This is Saturday around the noon time frame, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And look at all the snow, heavy snows in southern Kentucky right now. Southern Kentucky. And rains, maybe a mixture of some ice there in northern Tennessee to rain in southern Tennessee. Boy, that's a bit of everything there. You can see some more ice out in front. For us, we're out of the mix still on Saturday. We're still looking good. The high is protecting us. And at this point, the winds are coming around the high this direction while the low is coming in and it's swirling in this direction counterclockwise. The high is clockwise. So in between is where all the weather is going to be, it looks like on Saturday. So that's the NAM. Now let's go out to the GFS real quick before we come back to temperatures or anything. And let's see where the GFS is showing it. Okay, at the same time frame, the GFS, which is the American model, is showing the snow kind of in the same place. It's a little bit farther south, a little bit more in Tennessee at that time frame on Saturday morning. But you notice there, if you could almost draw a line, it's very similar to where the NAM was showing it at that time frame on Saturday morning. It just filled it in, the NAM did. So instead of having open skies, or not open skies, but at least open areas precipitation, it kind of filled it in there. So close, but a little bit farther south on the American model. And then here's the change. The American model is now starting to bring some snow up to Lafayette by Sunday in the morning hours around, that's 4 o'clock in the morning. So 4 o'clock in the morning, we start to see snows. Sometime after midnight, snows pretty, not too heavily. Let's see what we get for a real quick shot at accumulation there. That's 2 inches, though. You notice now it went from nothing yesterday to 2 inches, at least in that short period there, Saturday night into Sunday morning, all day Sunday. That's not a lot, but that's still some snow. And then the system goes on by, and we get back in. We get a lot of lingering stuff behind the system. The big high over here um, now is starting to change the directions of where everything is at and where everything is moving. You kind of see where it drops down out of Canada, boom, 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 and that brings in another big shot of cold weather with it on Monday, just from these first indications without even looking at temperatures. I can see that's what's going to happen. And then we kind of get into the flow, it goes out, and we're dry again for a while. We get these little waves of stuff, nothing major happening, no frontal systems around us, big high pressure, cold weather. Up there's a little front, maybe somewhere out around February 1st, but that's a long ways out. Nothing major, no big system. So this big system pops up and comes into our south here, at least on the GFS. This is by Saturday morning. Let's go back to about where we started. There we were Saturday early morning, right? This is where uh, indications were where it's going to be. Now let's look at the European model and see how it's changed. Now, the European model, got to change the precipitation. A different look at the precipitation types on this, right? So now look where its precipitation is. And here we are, we're talking 12Z Saturday morning. Look at this. It's wanting to bring snow in here as early as Saturday evening with all the precipitation to the south and bringing everything farther north. And look how close we get to the thicker amounts of moisture, and where we'll be looking at the snow ice line is to the south. So somewhere right in here, we're going to have an icy situation in southern Indiana on the European model. And then it stays with us all the way through Sunday morning. And it's starting to indicate that it'll linger into Monday morning potentially at this point. Now, how much snow do we see out of that? Well, let's take a look at that. Um, that's precipitable amounts of indication. Here we go. Snow. Ouch. 9. You got a swath right over Kentucky in the 18 to 19-inch range, but it shows us at 10. All right. So yesterday, when I was kind of leaning towards the missing us a bit and staying south, and we just get some flurries and light snow, and that would be it. Now the models are starting to come closer together. At least the American model has now pushed some moisture back up to us, 2 inches, and the European model is kind of slapping us around almost 10 inches for Lafayette right here. It shows 9.8, but you can see plenty of 10s around us. We're still kind of in the quietest spot, but it does bring up moisture into our area, and that is a lot of snow to worry about by Monday morning. So let's go back a little bit. Let's see if we can find when the peak, and it basically starts to bring it in Sunday morning. There you go. You're starting to increase. You're talking 6 inches on the ground by Sunday morning, and then you're talking 7 by noon and 8, 9 inches by later in the day. So it's an overnight thing, really starting to pick up Saturday into Sunday evening, Saturday evening, and then overnight Saturday night into Sunday for the European model. So that's the one we got to watch out for. That's the one everybody's kind of holding on to. It's Wednesday. We got another day or two before they really come together, and they'll shift either north or south a little bit. Here's the one thing we can say. There's going to be a system down here, obviously, right? And there's going to be cold air to the north. So we know that. So if it does come north, first off, it's going to be snow for us probably. We're far enough north that we're not going to be in the warmer bands to the south. So that's what we'll see, at least on that front. But how much snow will we get out of this? Is it 9 inches, or is it going to be 2 inches, or are we going to be in that buffer zone in between like it showed? My guess is over the next 4 runs until tomorrow morning, we'll probably see some back and forth again through this before it really settles in. Tomorrow will be Thursday. That'll give us Friday, Saturday. Yeah, we're right at the 72-hour mark out, give or take, and it'll start coming together really good tomorrow. Right now, they're just 100 or 200 miles apart. And that difference from that is snow, basically the heaviest bands all along the Ohio River into Kentucky, or the snow is back down into Tennessee. And for us, that means 2 inches or 9 inches or even none potential. So that's where the models show it right now. That's where we need to keep an eye out. Let's go back to the HER and let's zoom in a little bit closer so we can see what's going on locally. Let's check out some of the temperatures and some of the data for that real quick here. We'll hit that precipitation type real fast there just to show you what the HER. Remember, the HER was rather dry compared to the others, and here it doesn't even show the snow that's off to our north coming through. Let's see where it is. There's the radar showing that the radar is right on top of us, the snow. If you're up over towards Attica, you're probably already seeing some light flurries and light snow and moving through very quickly. If you're over towards Otterburn, same thing, probably starting to snow. And here we are in Lafayette, it's right on our doorstep. And that looks like it's gone by 10:30 for most of us. Unless you're out towards the southeastern portion, say down towards heading towards Indy, that kind of thing. So that's where that is, at least on that front. But look at this, the HER doesn't really show anything, does it? It just kind of pops that snow off to the north. So a little bit of light snow, but again, hard to pick up flurries and a very, very light snow on the model. Sometimes you got to put that in there, and that's what the forecaster's for. All right. And then here's tonight. Here comes the next little wave. The next little clipper pops through. This is 9 o'clock tonight. We kind of see the wave. There it is, 10 o'clock, and you've got a little bit of light snow. Same kind of thing. The clippers to the north, and it's swinging around with a little tail of some snow on there. And if you remember, the NAM showed none of this on the second wave, but it showed the first wave had something like this on it. So the two varied in differences there on the two. And it seems like the HER may have this a little better only because I'm looking at it as the HER showed no snow this morning and we're getting a little bit of flurries and light snow. So, and this lingers through tomorrow morning. And I think that's going to help us. It's going to help us temperature wise. We'll see when we get to the temperature chart here in a second. Just a quick little shot. Then there's some flurries again. Looks like Thursday night into Friday. So we're continuing with this either early morning or overnight flurries and light snow. Nothing heavy during the day much, but that's at least the theme for now. So let's go back temperatures. Let's take a look at that. What are we looking at for temperatures? Well, this morning, we've actually increased since early this morning. At midnight, we were somewhere in the upper teens to lower 20s, and we're now in the lower 30s already, and we're heading somewhere towards 40. So as soon as that front goes through, instead of reinforcing anything out of the north, because it's a weak system in this case, it's going to help push in some of the winds from the southwest, and in this case, probably more westerly. And that'll help warm us up a little bit because that's where the warmer temperatures are right now. But that'll be short-lived. We'll get into the afternoon. We may pop 40 this afternoon, and I'm thinking that because it shows 40, we probably will have some sunshine this afternoon pretty solidly. Then overnight, it starts to drop off. Here comes the cold air with the second system tonight, right? So by the time it gets into the area by midnight, we're back down below freezing, and then we may not see freezing again until February at this point. I hate to say that. It's kind of cool to say that, but it's only January 21st, so that's 10 days at least at this point. We see a high of 20 in the morning tomorrow morning, 25, 27, 28 tomorrow in the morning. During the afternoon and in the afternoon tomorrow, 28 degrees. A little pocket of warmth out here. So could we maybe drag a little bit of this in here and maybe scratch our way back up to 30 tomorrow? That would be a best bet right now, it looks like. Meanwhile, look what's behind it. Here comes for Friday morning. And Friday morning looks chilly. -3 just to our north. This is 8 o'clock in the morning, 0 for us. Look at this, double digit below zeros in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois, back into Iowa, and winds coming straight off the lake. Let's see if we can tap into the cloud cover real quick and see if that's what helped us here. Precipitation type. And during that time frame, look, there's still a lot of clouds over us. There's some spotty spots here. So if we open up like that, that cold is going to come right here because what happens is the temperatures on the ground escape into the atmosphere, and so you get colder. The low clouds act like a blanket, and you can see it's open there for a while, but then some clouds kind of come in. Maybe that saves us just a little bit during that period there. on Sunday. That would be Thursday, Friday morning. Here we go. Get my days mixed up. And so that's where that one is, at least on that temperature wise, -3. That's the HER. That's what the HER says. Now let's go to the NAM, see what it says. And the NAM shows temperatures. This is the 12Z. Go back to the 06Z. Shows temperatures bottoming out somewhere around 1 to 0, but kind of stay that way all day. All day Friday, just shows single digit temperatures. It doesn't show quite as cold early in the morning. It shows 13, but falling rapidly. So the timing's just a little different. And then it just shows cold all day. Actually, colder by the evening than it is in the morning. So 13 in the morning and 0 by the evening. And then just hovering around 0 to 1 into Saturday. And Saturday being very cold also on the NAM. So that's what you're seeing, at least temperature wise there. So let's go back a little bit again. Let's go back to Friday morning and then change over the GFS and see what it says. Now it shows single digits Friday morning, right? And then even below 0 right there Friday morning. And then one degree below, and then it just stays in single digits all day Saturday. Maybe pops up there in the evening to around, what was that, 13, 14 degrees. That would be the influence of the system coming in from the south, right? But we're still markedly colder and lots of moisture coming up from the Gulf of America. And then that stays just in the teens and single digits. That may be the saving there, at least on that, is enough cloud cover that we don't drop into this pocket of -10s and 20s up here. We will get some clouds coming up from the south, and that may keep us just a little bit warmer during that time frame. Let's look at the European model. What does it say? Well, it says 2 below in the morning on Saturday morning, and then it kind of stays there. And the same thing, it hovers in single digits all day Saturday into Sunday. Still single digits, single digits. Now you can see Sunday afternoon, it's still 9 degrees. That's it. And if you have all that moisture from the south coming up, it's going to radiate and it's going to push all of that snow out of it and the moisture out of it, coming in the form of cold. But look what happens on Monday. There we go. Monday, burr, burr, burr. There we go. Now we're getting into some of the pocket of cold, but it's not as cold to our northwest during that time frame. So Monday, we still could see temperatures below 0, potentially almost all day, it looks like right there. Monday mornings at 4 degrees below 0 by the 9, 10 o'clock frame. And then by the afternoon, -3 still, and then 0, then -3 overnight. And then there's the pocket. That tells me we're going to have some open skies Monday night into Tuesday. There's a pocket of cold is over the state of Indiana and Ohio. We are into this kind of pattern already with temperatures being cold. We've had reinforcing shots of cold. We've seen how that does that on the model, and we've seen how that works out. So there you go on that front. That's the ECM WF through Tuesday, January 27th, at least on temperatures on that one, on the front of that. Going back to today, though, real quick, let's take a look at it just so we can hit the highlights. What we're looking at today, pushing up towards 40. We can see a little bit of light snow coming in across the greater portions of western Indiana, just across the state line, coming into Lafayette. So it's right there outside right now, and you might be seeing something. A little bit of light snow out there. What's the temperature now? Well, outside says 33 degrees, and the airport is reporting light snow currently. So that's something to be aware of. And when we update this one here, it decoded Lafayette showing this was still from it hasn't even picked up the new observation yet out at the airport. And it's 32 degrees. There you go. So light snow, more light snow starting to pop up around the state. There were only 3 or 4 places earlier. Rensselaer's reporting, South Bend's reporting, Mishawaka, Goshen. So, and who else is it? Gary's also reporting. So everybody north of us is reporting some snow right now. And then we're just right on the horizon there waiting for the radar to kind of pop in and show us that it's going to hit here. It go through very rapidly. It'll be gone by about 10:30 for most of us. So that's the good news, at least on that. Man, that was a lot, folks. That's something to be concerned about front wise. We'll keep an eye on this thing. Matter of fact, I'll go out one more time on this, and I'm going to go farther out and take a quicker look at North America. It's a little too wide, I think, maybe. I think there's a section that's, there we go, contiguous United States. Uh, yeah, that'll work. Let's just stick with or should we just go here? So notice there's a floating box down there right now. And there's the big one there. So let's take us out of the picture and look at the moisture down there to our south real quick and how it's going to gen up down to the south. Okay, so this is which model? We're in the GFS right now. We're in the American model. Okay, so there's the stuff that went through. And remember I said you can almost draw a line sometimes. So the frontal boundary goes through and it drags along behind. I talked about it'd be down through Texas, right? So think about this sagging to the south here, but kind of going out east to west right along in here as the system goes through time. And then look what happens. That same area where it's going east to west is now where showers start to pop up. Potential for snowfall starts to pop up. This is on Friday, and then there it is on Saturday coming up towards us. And then by Sunday, boom, there it is. So that's the American model, which pushes the 2 to 3 to maybe 4 inches near us by the end of Sunday, right? Same kind of thing. So building up down here. Now you change over to the European model. It shows the same thing, but there's more moisture to the north with this system. Everything else you can kind of line up same area or similar. So now we're just varying on where the low is going to be. And in this case, you can see it pushes a lot more moisture to the north, a lot more to the north in this case. And that means it's going to get up towards us on Saturday and into Sunday. It will start sooner and it will last longer, amounting to more if the European model is correct. So I'm leaning in between kind of at this point. It's a tough call because we're only worried about 100-mile difference here between where the lows are now and where they are there, between the difference of no snow, 3 inches, and 9 inches for Lafayette. And I wouldn't be surprised if the European model hammers us with 12 inches tomorrow and the American model comes up to like 9 or 5 or 6 inches tomorrow. That kind of stuff does not surprise me. But I would say tomorrow's what? Thursday? By the end of tomorrow, we'll have a real good feel on what's going to happen for us on Saturday into Sunday into Monday. And everything will come together between the three of the models, between the two, the European model, the American model, the North American model, and the HER, which is a short range model more than anything else. So there you go, 33 degrees out there right now. Let's bring it back out. Let's see, so you can see my ugly mug. Not great news. Not great news. I think first off, the one thing to remember is it's going to be cold. After today, it's going to be cold. It's going to stay cold. So you need to be prepared for that. Think about the people around you. Do you have some elderly folks like me that you got to come take care of, make sure I'm okay, right? That kind of thing. Make sure the house is okay. Make sure your heaters are good. If you've got electric heaters, make sure that they are in good working order. We don't want fires out there. That's always a problem every year with the heaters, especially when you have the electrical heaters out and about. So we want to take care of that. Make sure your friends, your family are taken care of. Maybe your neighbors need some help. When we get into these kind of situations, we will look for the best. Maybe we can keep the system farther to the south and we won't get as bad. But there's going to be a big swath of the United States that's going to get hit by this pretty hard. It doesn't look like we're in the bullseye at the moment. But anything could change in the next 24 hours. Remember, we could vary just a little bit. We could find out, the model could figure out that there's winds coming in stronger from a different direction and push the system to the north or to the south a little bit in the next 24 hours pretty easily, as it keeps gathering data in constantly and trying to figure out where the next wave will move because of the physics of the atmosphere. That could affect us. So be ready and kind of, what is it? It's Wednesday now. Today, tomorrow, maybe the next day, Friday for sure. By then, go in and look in on somebody if you need to make sure they're doing okay as we head towards the weekend and what could be something pretty dramatic for some folks out there for sure. Meanwhile, All kinds of news in the world, local news. Did you hear about the big accident yesterday on I-65? Maybe you heard about that, maybe you didn't. The accident was around, I think, the 174-mile marker, and unfortunately, somebody lost their life. That was like 3:30 yesterday afternoon, a little after 3. And then, like an hour later, in the backup and the congestion, there was another accident just 2 miles away. You can kind of think that that's probably what it came from, and somebody lost their life in that one too. So, a couple of deaths on the highways yesterday, on the interstate right here close to town. And that created chaos if you were heading that direction or coming from that direction towards Lafayette. It was stopped. There were cameras out. There was all kinds of video of the interstate basically just stopped in its tracks, nothing moving in either direction. They were trying to get people off the best they could. But with two major accidents, it definitely created some chaos. And I'm sure that lasted into the evening hours pretty long before they were able to straighten it out. Don't know about a time frame. I'm not seeing anything on the news that's telling me when it got better, or anything along those lines. Matter of fact, when I look at the WLFI's front page, I don't see anything about accident on there. You'd almost think there's nothing happening, but we all know that something happened yesterday afternoon out there. And I'm sure they covered it. It seems like I saw it somewhere on the news. So I just don't see it on their front page of what they had. Their front page does show a little bit about what's going on with the judge and his wife, and what happens with them and how they still don't know what's going on. There's lots of unanswered questions about the shooting, and that was Judge Stephen Meyer and his wife, and they are recuperating. It does look like they're going to be okay. But generally speaking, it was a tough thing that happened to them on Sunday and has made the national news and is still in the national news, about that when we've been seeing that. I go over to Star City and I don't see any. Oh, here it is. Fatal crash victim identified as a 60-year-old woman. Well, this is 19 hours ago. So this is yesterday during the day. That's not the one that we're talking about for the accident yesterday. I'm a little bummed about that. I don't see a lot of what's happening actually in our news. So then I just type in right news. News for Lafayette, Indiana. Better put Indiana on there, because if you don't put Indiana on there, you will get Louisiana news. All right, so it's got the judge on there. And it does show a lot of stories when you go into this that are the same, that are on WLFI and that kind of thing that you'll find, or Star City. Then Wish TV has a story on the two die in I-65 crashes within minutes and miles of each other near Lafayette. And the two fatalities are in separate crashes. That comes from the Indiana State Police. Those were both from Indianapolis. But I know WLFI talked about it. They just don't have it on their webpage on the front where I can pop on it real quick and look at it, right? That's the kind of thing I'm talking about. And the Journal and Courier, you kind of have to go pay for their stuff, and I don't want to pay for anything. Sorry about that, Journal and Courier. Sorry about that. Some of us don't want to afford that kind of thing. That's why I'm podcasting. I'm trying to make millions, right? So just something there. But I still want you to go back and make sure you watch Star City. Make sure you watch WL5. They are our local news. They do catch almost every single story before everybody else does. But there are the stories on that popped up on the pages for the Indianapolis, because the two deaths were such a big deal. It says 2 people are dead after 2 separate crashes Tuesday afternoon. One was at 3:15. It was a 2005 Dodge Ram, was traveling southbound near right by State Road 25 and South Street when the truck left the road, entered the median, struck a guardrail, and then rolled over. Okay. State police say the reason for the truck crashing is unknown. The driver of the Dodge Ram died at the scene. That makes me think he fell asleep or something, that kind of thing. The roads were in decent condition yesterday. Shortly after the crash, now 3:45, so now we're only talking a half hour later, police responded to a 3-car crash almost in the exact same area. Police say a semi-truck failed to slow for the backed-up traffic from the previous crash, striking 2 other semis. The driver of the semi that failed to slow died at the scene. The drivers of the 2 semis trucks that were hit were unharmed. and the coroner was working to identify who everybody was through this, and it might sometimes takes a little bit of time there on that. So unfortunately, we lost a couple people on our roads yesterday. This time of the year, boy, it seems to happen. We had last storm, which wasn't even that bad. We had somebody who passed away on our streets, and we just don't like to see that. But we got to be ready for that kind of thing. It is winter. This is Indiana, and we know what happens in Indiana during the winter. It gets very cold. We have to watch for that for our elderly folks and anybody who might be in harm's way from the cold, and very icy streets and plenty of snow in our forecasts. And that's exactly what we're seeing over the next couple of days. I like to say that I am a winter weather expert because I forecasted weather in Antarctica for almost 20 years. And I've seen just about every storm you can think of. But that's down there, not as many highways and roads. But I was your TV weatherman here at WLFI too for 6 years. So I know the roads pretty well here in Indiana. And I grew up in Indiana too. So I got a good feel for that. When there's winter weather, I'm probably you're the guy you want to come talk to about that. And you notice I'm still not in line specifically which model is going to take for the weekend. And I've had several questions for that. And what I do like is what I've seen now from some of the guys I've seen on Facebook and on TV that are not saying this is exactly what's going to happen and this is exactly what's going to happen. They're showing the two models because I talked about that last week. And on Monday, when it seemed like everybody started jumping on, it's going to be minus 20 degrees on Friday. And it wasn't going to be that, of course, because they put in those scare tactics. But what I saw yesterday, that would be Tuesday, was some pretty good forecasting, people talking about what the model could and couldn't do and how that affected us here in Lafayette. So you'll get that all the time here. I'm going to try to cover everything. I'll go through all the models. The main models that we look at, and we'll talk about it, and I'll show you, I'll try to guide you through that, give you a good feel for it, and then we'll make some decisions from there. And I'm just not ready to pull the trigger on this. I am leaning more towards more snow now than I was yesterday because the American model is coming on closer in line with the European model, but we'll have to see. Now, the European model moved everything a little bit north itself, so that gave us even more snow than it showed us with yesterday. But last week, when this first system started popping up, it was like last Monday or Tuesday, and it was 10 days out. It was like middle of the week. Each day it pushed it back, and finally it settled in on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, somewhere in there. And that gives you an indication how the long range forecasts are just not that accurate. It knew there was going to be some kind of big system forming, and it has stuck with that. It just varied its times. In this case, it started, I think, on Tuesday this week. Yesterday, it said it was going to hit. And by the time it got to the weekend, it was finally settling in on Friday, Saturday, or Sunday this week. So it was pushing it back and changing the times. And you can see how one small change in anything on the charts over 7 days can be a hit or a miss anywhere. So that's something to keep in mind. That's why those long range forecasts, 5 days is okay. 2 days is definitely good. You're going to be good in 2 days almost always. Going to be very accurate, 90% probably. Once you go farther out, then you're getting less and less and less, or you're seeing big systems and you can see trends. Remember, I've been telling you for a week it's going to get cold and it's going to stay cold by the end of the month. So that trend we still see continuing forward, but the system itself moved a little bit farther south. Now it's coming back a little bit to the north over a couple day span. And their new model runs come out every 6 hours. We will have a new update for the 12Z run probably by about 11:30. And about 11:30, I'll come back in and I'll show some more of that. And we'll hit some of the highlights of what the new changes are with that, if we can pinpoint them real quickly, since we'll be looking at the new data together for the first time. That'll be something that'll be pretty good. But that'll come around 11:30, quarter to 12, right before the end of the show. I'll try to do that. I'll hit weather again at least one more time before then. But up until that time frame, we'll cover some other things here. Like we're talking about the news, the accident yesterday out on the interstate that led to a couple of deaths, and a lot of the local things that the judge, they're still looking to try to find what's going on. Who was the person that shot the judge through the door, and his wife got hurt too. And trying to figure out who's going on and what's going on with that front. Meanwhile, Let's see. What happened Monday? Monday, Indiana won the national championship government. That's probably the last time we'll mention it. Not that they're national champions. We'll probably mention that several times, but the game was Monday night. The Hoosiers won that big game, but then Purdue had a big game last night, and that didn't go so well. I'll break that down here shortly. Let's see if there's anything else on the front that we can hit news wise. At least it just pops up at me. Um, oh, we do have some Purdue reaction to the national championships, and I'm sure it's going to vary. Um, I wasn't too mad about it. Jack Cagle says, because my dad's a big IU fan, so I felt happy about him being so ecstatic about it. But I mean, I wasn't rooting for them to win at all. You can see that. That's about normal, right? Here's another one. Chris Kulas said, hopefully Purdue will be the same way. I mean, IU was the same ranking as Purdue 2 or 3 years ago, so maybe something will be in our cards in the future. And I said that yesterday. A lot of us would like that. What happened to the Hoosiers is something that just doesn't happen. It is kind of a Cinderella story. It is kind of coming out of nowhere. And so to expect that from Purdue is to really be expecting a lot. We know we have a top-notch basketball team, and then they went and lost last night, right? And they're still pressing to try to be national champions this year. Um, and we know how hard that is. So let alone coming from the worst team in college football, sorry, Hoosiers, you were. You had the most losses of any team in college football to now being national champions is a Cinderella story. It's a great story. It really is. It's awesome. They'll probably do a movie about it someday, right? Oh, yeah. Hoosiers too. Got it. We got it right there. Hoosiers and Hoosiers too. We're going to see it. Basketball and football. We got this. It'll probably come out next year on Netflix. You guys be ready for it, right? But still a great story with them winning the national championship. And people here in town are a little mixed, but a lot of people I think are pretty happy for our friends that are Hoosier fans and for people in the state of Indiana being able to get a national championship. Now, if we can get Purdue to win the national championship this year in the men's basketball and the women next year, that would be great. We could just keep running the string there for a while. We'll be known as basketball and football teams, right? And then Purdue the following year, which would be 2 years later, right? After we started anew and being one of the worst teams in the league to winning the national championship. Man, that would be nice every year. We'd have a lot to talk about on the show, wouldn't we? All the time. And it would be good all of the time. So what do we have going on, though, when we talk about what happened to Purdue last night? And I'm going to the Purdue men's site or to the Purdue athletics site to get some of this information. And the first thing that sticks out in my mind is 3-point shots, 26%. 26% on 3-pointers. So not good, not good. So Purdue's ranked number 4, right? They fell to 17-2 last night. And here's what I know, because I didn't get to see the video of anything or see even any of the highlights. I just followed it along the little script on the ESPN that tells you what each play is, right? Purdue had a 6-point lead with a minute and a half left in the game. All right. And UCLA made a 3-pointer. Okay, so that cut it to 3 points, but they had the 3-point lead. But then Purdue went down, turned it over. And what did UCLA do? Well, first off, I said earlier in the game when we didn't push the lead out farther and get bigger, I was like, this is going to come back and haunt us. That's what I was thinking in my mind anyway. And so they get the turnover. They come right back down. They make another 2. Now it is 67-66. So it went from 67-61 to 67-66 really quickly. Purdue didn't even get a shot off to stop any of that. Okay, so Purdue gets the ball back again. They go back down, and they turn it over again. 2 times in a row, they turned it over. UCLA comes back down, buries a 3 to go ahead 69-67. Purdue can't – well, they get a 3-pointer off, but they don't make it at the end, and they lose the game 69-67, and they had a 6-point lead with a minute and a half left, right? All because during that time frame, they got 1 shot off. Meanwhile, you never give the other team a chance, especially at home. They buried all 3 shots that they got, and they cost Purdue a win yesterday. That's supposed to be the things that don't happen to a team like this. But that being said, it can happen to anybody, right? The loss snaps Purdue's season-long 9-game winning streak they had. And in this case, I know exactly what's going to happen. Now that they have no room, right? They have no room to play with because literally you may have just given your Big Ten season away right there because you have a gauntlet of games. You needed every single game. You couldn't lose one that you had or you should win, and that's a game they should have won. They were favored by 7 points, I think. They were right there at 6-point lead. It was a good game back and forth. I hear it was kind of a rock fight again, nothing dramatic, but it just was a slow game and a lot of pushing and shoving. But that happens too, right? That seems to be the way to get at Purdue. I still don't understand it in my mind. I know Coach Painter likes slowing the game down because that keeps you in games, but that's when you're the bad team. When you're the bad team, you want to slow it down because if the other team only touches it so many times, they can only score so many points. If you're the better team, you should run it fast and move it quickly and get as many touches as you can because you'll score more. Yes, the other team has potential to score more, but statistic wise, you should score even more than they should. So, yes, you win a game 70-60, but if you run it up and down the court, you win the game 90-72. So you see the difference. That's how the statistics work out in something like that. So I would love for him to run them up and down the court. I'm not the coach though. He does what he does. No big deal. I still love me some Paints just like everybody else does. So they lose that game last night. They lose their potential where they had a game on Michigan. They had a game on Michigan State. They had a game on Illinois. Guess who's coming to town Saturday? Illinois. All right. So you got games against Illinois, Indiana, Michigan State, Michigan, game against Nebraska, who's still undefeated and now leads the league, right? You got to go to Northwestern. Indiana comes back in, right? That's 7 games just like in the month of February. And if you're lucky to go 5-2 in that stretch, you're doing a really good job because those are all tough games, right? During the next 7 to 10 games. And you couldn't give one away when you had it right there for your grasp. So that's just a tough one. That's going to be a tough one. We'll see how the guys bounce back on Saturday. They'll be a little bit favored in that game, but realistically, I looked at the stats this morning. Purdue's now fallen to 7th. They're not the number 1 team in the country anymore, efficiency-wise. They have now dropped to 2nd. Guess who's number 1? Illinois, coming to town on Saturday. Great. There you go. And the defenses between the two are 19th and 21st between Purdue and Illinois. So numbers-wise, they're almost identical to each other. And Illinois only has 3 losses, right, on the season. So they're a good team, and they're coming into town. So Purdue went from 4th now down to 7th in the KenPom ratings, right? And you know what they'll do? Even if they win Saturday, they'll drop them to 7th or 8th. So now you're talking a 2 seed already. And based on what happened the last 5 weeks where they never moved up, even though they kept winning and winning, realistically, there are 5 teams that are battling out for the number 1 seed, 5 or 6 teams, right? And Purdue was one of those, but now they may be on the outside looking in because they had a loss now, barring them really just running a good, running it out with one more loss the rest of the season or something like that. They might be fighting for a 2 or a 3 seed because of one small loss to UCLA in the middle of the season when they probably shouldn't have. That's a possibility. I don't want to say it that way, but that does look like that could be a possibility. That they could be they might fall as far as 10th this week on Monday next week, especially if they lose. If they lose, they'll fall to 13th. You watch. They'll push them all the way down. Why is that? Because there's some kind of thing that people don't like Purdue for some reason. I know we're fans. We think that all the time, but statistically, numbers wise, they should be in one spot, but they'll be rated lower than that almost every time. It seems like that doesn't mean they're not rated number 1 because they've been number 1 in the country a bunch of times in the last few years, deservedly so, because they've had such big wins. But in each case, everyone said, oh, Purdue's got problems here, or Purdue's got problems there, and they still just keep right on winning, right? Just goes to show you what these pundits know and what they think they know. So the people voting, I guarantee you, Purdue will be no better than 7th this week. And that's if they beat Illinois on Saturday. If they lose to Illinois on Saturday, they'll drop into double digits for the first time in how long? Who knows? Sometime last year, probably. Right. And that's just the way they'll go. They lost 2 games in a week. They're done. That's what people will do. They'll write them off, and they don't need to be written off. There's nothing wrong with them at all. They just lost a game they should have won. That's about it. And I can be annoyed by it because I'm a fan. Yay. I still love them. I still think they're going to do a great job. Unfortunately, now Purdue is now 5-11 all time against UCLA and has never won in Pauley Pavilion. Now 0-4 out there. So when they come to our neck of the woods, we're at least 5-7. At least they have almost a winning record. So Purdue led 67-61 with under 2 minutes to play, but had 2 turnovers and a missed last-second three-pointer in the final 3 possessions. And they scored on all 3 of those possessions. They scored 8 points. Purdue averaged just 68 points and shot 50 of 115. So from the field in both the 2 games on the West Coast. And they had just 34 assists against 16 turnovers. Purdue was 14 of 48 from three-point range on the West Coast. 29%. Won't win you anything. Literally, you just needed one more. One more and you would have won both games. That's it. Purdue saw a 32-game winning streak end when having fewer turnovers and out-rebounding its opponents. So we did everything right yesterday. The last time Purdue lost when winning both the turnover and rebound margin was December 9th, 2021 versus Rutgers. Was that the game Rutgers hit the shot at the end of the game? I think that was what gave them a chance too, right? See what happens when you give them a chance? Purdue, you were given a chance against USC. You took advantage of it and won the game, right, at the end of the game. Now you gave UCLA a chance. They came back and won. So Purdue also saw a 17-game winning streak against unranked teams end in the loss. Last time they lost was a regular season finale against Illinois last year. Purdue suffered its first loss on the road this season, now 4-1. Cox scored 16, season-high 5 rebounds and career-high 4 assists. And he did take the last shot. He didn't make it, but he got the last shot. And he hasn't committed a turnover in his last 12 games. Wow. I'm going to have him dribble up the court all the time. Spending 288 minutes. Braden has all that, and they double team him a lot, so that can lead to that. I don't know how the steals happen off of his turnovers there at the end, but I believe there were 2 steals actually. So who knows what happened? It didn't look like they called a lot of fouls in this game, even though I heard it was a kind of a rough one at times for either side. So the low tally, low free throw numbers. Trey Kaufman-Renn kind of came back a little bit. He had 10 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists. He looked good, especially early in the game. And Purdue's bench outscored UCLA's 18-0. Why? Because they played their starters all but about 5% of the game. So those 5 guys were out on the court at the end, and they're the ones who made 3 baskets in a row to win it. And they went 7 of 15 from the field. So Purdue's bench did, and they scored 18 points. Maybe we should have had them in a little longer. Sorry, guys. Just a little ding there. Donovan Dent, who assisted on the winning basket, had 23 points and 13 assists for the Bruins, who are now 13-6. Now, the Bruins, on the other hand, may pick up some numbers here, and they'll move up. Weren't they in the 40s yesterday? Let's see how they moved up. Yep, they moved up into the 30s now. 43rd offense, 48th defense. And they moved from like 44 or 45 to 39th in KenPom ratings. So, and USC had gone from like 50th to 46. So Purdue has been good for those teams, even though USC lost. Because it didn't hurt USC losing that much because Purdue was number 4 in the country, right? The game was tied at halftime, and Purdue had a big lead in the first half. I think it was, what was it? 8 points, 10 points, something like that. I think it's going to tell me here somewhere. I got some of the numbers. First loss in the league. Play kept them from taking yeah. So their first loss, Purdue's in the league, kept them from taking sole possession of first place over Idle, Nebraska. The game was tied at halftime. Neither team led by more than 6 points in the second half. Smith hit a 3-pointer and Trey to get them up 67-61. But the Bruins scored the game's final 7 points. Well, it's actually 8 points. Purdue had a 12-point lead in the first half, and that's where I was like, let's bury them. And I was doing something else. I was looking at weather charts and things like that. And so I went away from it for 10 or 15 minutes. I came back, and the game was tied. I was like, because the Bruins went on a 17-5 run to end the first half, including 11 in a row at one point to tie the game at 32. So Purdue had been up, 32-21, obviously, something like that, 32-20, but somewhere right in there. And Boy, it's just one of those losses that you're like, "Oh, man, guys, come on." Let me look at some of the, numbers of the box scores here. Probably the worst thing about the game was it was so late at night last night. Okay, so CJ had 16 points, and he shot 6 for 11, so he was 6 for 10 up to that point, and he had hit 2 of 5 three-pointers up through that point, till that last shot I'm talking about anyway. He had 4 assists and 5 rebounds, so he kinda led everybody. That's good to see, though. We know CJ's got the game in him. He's, maybe a couple years ago, before he came in, I did a video on him and Jakari and a couple of the guys coming in and how good the class was going to be last year. And I showed that CJ could get his own shot pretty easily and could score. We didn't know he was a great defender too, but he's a great defender also. So that's what we know from that. Braden came in second, scored 12 points. He had 4 assists, and I think like 3 of those came early, right? And then he didn't shoot well for a while, but then he started making buckets. He ended up 5 of 13 and 2 of 5 from three-point range. Trey Kaufman-Renn was 4 of 6 from the field. He scored 10. Let's see here. And he had 7 rebounds and 5 assists. That's a good solid game from Trey. It's not the 20 points he scored last year, but he only took 6 shots. And here's the other one. Oscar Clough only took 5 shots. I kept hearing before the game from every pundit out there that the front court, Kaufman-Renn and Clough, were just going to dominate over these guys. They only took 11 shots the entire game. What were we thinking? I don't know. You add in Jacobson, okay, that's 15 shots because he took 4 and he made 2 of his. So, well, between Oscar, who made 3 of 5, and Trey, who made 4 of 6, why were we not going down there more? Meanwhile, I've wanted Fletch to shoot, and Fletch got 10 shots up, 6 of which were three-pointers, but he only made 2. So he was off on the night. He only scored 5 points. Clough only scored 6, and Trey scored 10. But our bench had 7, 4, 4, and 3 because Harris had 7. Jack Benner had 4. Daniel Jacobson had 4. Omer had 3. All of them shot pretty well. And I'll be willing to bet that the positive negatives when people are in is better when those 2 or 3 guys were on the court because they did seem to – it seemed like in the first half, Jack was on the court and Daniel was on the court when they took the lead and got it out to like 12. But I'm not sure. I'd have to go back and look at – there's some guys that have charts on that stuff. You have to look that kind of stuff up. But Purdue shot 43% in the first half and 46% in the second half. And three-pointers, they were 4 for 13 in the first and 3 for 14 in the second. If they take 27, they should make 12, right? 10 anyway. Even 10 of 27 would be 39% or something like that. That's 3 more. That's 9 more points, and you win the game easily. Matter of fact, I think that's less than that. It probably is 12. 12 of 27 is more like 40%. So that's what? That's 15 more points. But you went 7 for 27. So points in the paint, 28. Points off of turnovers, 13. Fast break points, 10. But your bench scored 18, and they've been scoring almost 20 a game. The score was tied 4 times. They lead changed 7 times, and the largest lead was 12 by Purdue, who still ended up losing the ball game. So it's kind of reverse. It was kind of what happened to USC. USC took a big lead in the first half against Purdue on Saturday, and then Purdue came back and won the game. Well, today, or last night, excuse me, Purdue took the big lead, 12 points, double digits, but couldn't push it out there and ended up losing. And I guess it's the minute and a half, and they only had touched the ball 3 times, and they turned it over twice, and the other team only touched it 3 times and scored 8 points and ended up winning the game. And it kind of bugs me. That's just annoying. That's all it is. But that's because I was a player, not college player. You know what I mean? Just a sports guy too, playing sports. And that kind of stuff annoyed me. Questions though. Is Fletch going to come out of this shooting slump he's in? If Fletch is going to be out there 28 minutes on the court and shoot 2 for 10, he's not helping a lot, is he? And he's been in a slump for a while, and we all love Fletch. He does a lot of the little things, but he had no rebounds and 1 assist. And he gave us 5 points. That's a big black hole yesterday out there, right? Big black hole. So that didn't help at all. Jakari played 14 minutes. He did give us 7 points. He scored more than Fletch, and he played half as much as Fletch. But again, no rebounds. 2 assists. That's good. That helped a little bit. And Jakari had a block. And 2 steals. There we go. There's Jakari's defense showing up. So that's a better box score there for Jakari. I like that in his short time. He did what he does. We know he's got good defense. He had some steals. He had a block, 2 assists, scored 7 points. I like it. I like it. Even though he's 1 for 4 from 3, he was 2 for 5 for the game. And he got a couple free throws in there too, right? Purdue only took 7 free throws in the game. They made 6 of 7, so you can't blame that right there. Omer came in. He only played 11 minutes, but he scored 3 points. He had a rebound. He did not have an assist. He did have a turnover. That kind of hurt, but he was only 1 for 2 from the field. Jacobson took 4 shots in his 16 minutes and scored 4 points. He had 3 rebounds, a couple personal fouls, nothing else. So a lot of guys, except for Trey, who did a little bit of everything, didn't do a ton. Braden did a little bit of everything. He just didn't have the amount of assists he normally has. He had 3 rebounds and 4 assists to go with his 12 points. Just kind of the way that works out. Let's take a look at UCLA's numbers, and you look at some of their guys. The guy who led them scored 23 points and had 13 assists. The guy who was second had 14, 3 and 4. The next guy had 12, 7 and 3. The next guy had 11, 4 and 2. Everybody was doing a little bit of everything. The only guy who didn't was Xavier Booker, and he still scored 9 points. He did have 4 rebounds, but no assists. And he had 3 blocks, so he did a little bit of everything too. But their entire bench did not score, only took 1 shot, only played for 12, 14, 16, 17 minutes. Their starters played 38, 34, 34, 38, 35 minutes. They played almost the entire game because they were trying to win. And Purdue seemed lackadaisical at times. They only got 13 points off of turnovers. They lost the rebounding battle, right? They scored 30 in the paint. They lost the fast break battle. They lost everything just about but the score. And that's what happens. That's what happens. It can happen. And coach will get out there and say, we'll just keep doing the same thing. And he's right. He's correct. It does work. It does work. Just keep doing the same stuff, working on the same things, trying to do the same stuff, and your team will come through eventually. Right? But that was a tough one last night. I'm glad I didn't get to actually see the visual part of it. I probably would have thrown something at the TV. No, I haven't done that in a long time. It's been a week. since the Bears lost the other night. I did get to watch some of the Bears game the other night, which was pretty good. So, all right. So that was the Purdue men last night. Now the women have a game out there tonight, and hopefully they can pull off a victory there. I think they're behind the 8 ball on that one. I think the Lady Bruins are ranked also. So they got an uphill battle for them, but they'll give it a shot tonight out there trying to win a ball game. And Purdue comes back and plays on Saturday against Illinois. Let me see here. I think I got it on ESPN, the magazine. I have to go to that real quick and see when Purdue plays on Saturday. So 17-2 right now. I know that everybody, Purdue has already dropped to 4th now. One loss, and they are now 4th in the league because they're the last place team. Michigan has a better record. They're all 7-1, and I know that's how the conference will work. But Michigan State and Purdue are both 17-2. And when you looked at the Big Ten standings on ESPN, they pushed them all the way to the bottom right there. 7-1, just ahead of Illinois by half a game. That's it. And Illinois comes in at 6-1, playing good ball, 15-3. All right. Nebraska, idle, didn't play. So what does Purdue play? They play at 3:00 on Saturday, the 24th. And that will be at 3:00 on Fox. Then they play Tuesday at 9:00 on Peacock again. That's at Indiana. And then they got to go to Maryland next week on the February 1st. Let's see, February 7th, Oregon comes to town. Then they got to go out to Nebraska on the 10th of February. They got to go to Iowa on the 14th. Michigan comes to town on the 17th. Indiana comes into town on the 20th. Michigan State comes into town on the 26th. You don't finish week either. You got Ohio State. You got to go there on the 1st of March. On the 4th of March, you got to go to Northwestern. And then you finish up with Wisconsin, who's playing much better now, on the 7th of March. So there's no gimmies anywhere in this game except Maryland. Maybe Maryland's about it because I don't consider Indiana a gimme at all. They've been playing good ball, and it's a rivalry. Illinois is a rivalry, plus they're ranked 11th. Nebraska's ranked 7th. Michigan's ranked 3rd. Michigan State's ranked 10th. Every game in there will be a great resume maker, but you kind of blew. And yes, UCLA is a quad one win, but or loss, so it won't hurt your resume that much, but it will at the end of the season. You watch. They'll say, well, they lost to UCLA and we're going to rank them 3rd, and they're going to be a 3 seed or the last 2 seed instead. That's what will end up happening unless they just power through all this. This is a gauntlet they're getting ready to come through, and I've been telling you this for a while. All of February is awful, and the 2 games still left leading into February aren't very good either against Illinois and Indiana. So tough schedule ahead for the boys and the gals too out there. What else do we got going besides that for men's sports? We got to check out the temperature real quick here. We're up to 34. It is still showing snow showers. Let's see if I got a shot. The satellite and now the radar is starting to show that most of the snow is passing by, still over the top of us, so it's still a little bit before it fully gets through. It's kind of sliding off to the northeast. Let me pop it up there for you guys to see real quick. There's the satellite. Here we are right there. There's the Lafayette. It's basically over us right now and kind of passing on by. And it looks like most of the heaviest stuff went north of town. And, this fits pretty close to what the model said the other day. One model had everything up here. The other model had everything down here, right? And I said we were in between. And that's sure about what happened, right? If you go right in between is about where the snow is. Crawfordsville's not getting anything, it looks like. And the one model took some of the snow all the way down past Crawfordsville, and the other one had it north of us. And it's just hard when it's these little tail ends of stuff trying to forecast a little bit of light snow with that. But moving through pretty quickly right now. And let's see if we have an update here. Last observation out at the airport said 34 degrees and overcast, and it had stopped snowing out there at that point already. So there you go. There you go. We got a big system coming in. It's hard to say where things are going to go. I'm going to get into that really good again in about an hour when the new models are updated. But the changes from yesterday on the weather front were one model yesterday had its bone dry. That was the North American model or the American model. The European model had us like 7-8 inches. And it had the system closer to us. It's south of us, the system is. Last week it had it right over us. And then as you would think, 8 days out, it changed and we massage it, so to speak, as we get closer and closer to it. And the system has shifted farther to the south and looks like it's definitely going to be in the south. Now, whether it's Tennessee or Kentucky means a lot to us. If it hits Tennessee or southern Tennessee, means not much snow for us. Central Tennessee, maybe to the Kentucky border where the central portion of the snow band is, means we're going to get some more snow. And that's what the North American model or the American model is starting to show, which it didn't show yesterday. And then the European model through the whole thing has showed that we're going to get snow on the north side as it's going to come through Tennessee and Kentucky. And matter of fact, it's even focusing more right through Kentucky as the central band where we're talking a foot of snow or more for those folks there. And it shows, I believe, 8 or 9 inches for us potentially. So something to keep an eye on. What did the model hit from last week that we definitely knew was going to hit was trends. Trends were cold, right? I said, always listen to trends. Trends on the long range models are almost always there or pretty close, where pinpointing storms, even if they're big like this one coming through this weekend, are harder to hit. Especially exact positioning is very hard. Hence, last week it showed us in the middle of it. So, and this week we weren't anywhere near it on Monday, and now we're kind of back in the mix. So you can see how everything changes a little bit depending on how other systems react. So let's say, just to give you an idea, you were getting on the freeway, right? And you were both getting on at 65 miles an hour, but the first car, right? He has to slow down a little bit. And so the second one runs up into it, and that affects what this guy does. And then this system moves off, and then this guy has to catch up, right? Or he has to move or change a little bit. That's kind of what happens with weather. A low pressure system comes in, maybe it slows down a little bit. So the one behind it has to slow down because it can't get too close. And then they have to adjust. as they pick up speed and get out onto the freeway. That's one way of thinking about it, and I think that's a pretty easy way to think about it, kind of getting into traffic. You have to adjust, you have to move and mold, and that's what happens with these models. A little bit of a low, the low is not exactly where the model thought it would be, so it adjusts a little bit and makes fine tuning it. And the closer and closer you get to the system, the easier and easier it gets to pinpoint. Um, for instance, when I first started forecasting back in the 80s, hurricanes were pretty tough. They were pretty accurate considering outside 12 hours to 24 hours, but then it got pretty bad. Now, like 3, 4 days out, they're within 50 to 100 miles almost all the time on these hurricanes. I'm amazed at how accurate they are. Now they have tons and tons of models doing it. And they kind of put it all together, and then they get this cone of where it's going to be. Well, that cone in the 80s was like this. Well, the cone now is like this. And it can be in that little small area. That's what I really like to see. That's been some great things, and computers have done. And the models that are running now, which were running back in my day, same models, same names. A lot of them, they just been upgraded and made better and better, are better than they were back then too. And back then, in the 80s, we probably couldn't be consistent more than 24 hours, where now I feel like 48 to 72, everything is pretty accurate. Everything's pretty accurate, compared to maybe 24 hours back then. And from then on, it got worse and worse, right? So everything's getting better and better. And that's not AI, that's just the model and physics, learning physics, how things work, how systems have reacted in the past, and putting that all together. Although AI may be part of that eventually. I'm sure I'm going to be out of a job. I may just get an AI character and sit here and just have his mouth move while I'm talking off camera, so you don't have to see me, and then just have AI do the whole thing. What do you guys think about that? I know, it would be one of the best looking AI characters ever, but it still would be, be something to do, something to think about, right? I know, stop throwing stuff at the camera. Guys out there laughing at me probably right now. All right, let's hit into some world news. We hit a couple of the highlights of what happened in Lafayette. We had a big accident yesterday. There was an accident on I-65. A Dodge truck flipped over, and unfortunately it killed the occupant that was in it. And then like a hour later, there was another accident with a truck that ran into the back of other trucks that had slowed down for the incident, and that truck driver also died in that one. So that happened yesterday in the afternoon. That's why the interstate was pretty much shut down for a few hours yesterday, with two major accidents happening real close to each other. And then the Purdue game we talked about last night, but we're still talking about the judge having been shot over the weekend and his wife through their door, and they still no details. No one's coming up with any details, and the FBI is involved now, of course. All your state representatives have come out with statements about, trying to be safe and giving prayers and things like that for everybody. They are going to recover, it looks like, with not too much harm for the judge, Meyer, and his wife. And I think the judge is going to retire this year. So let's kind of send him out with feeling a little bit better by the time he gets out and heads out for his retirement, instead of somebody coming to his door like that. That's craziness there. Okay, so what's big in the news, right? Well, when I started the show a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about Maduro and how that would create dominoes, and how it would affect Iran, and it would affect Russia and China and Cuba and North Korea and things like that. And it also affected Europe. And with that, Trump threw out the lifeline of, hey, I want to take Greenland, right? He didn't mean take it. He didn't mean come and attack it. But they kind of took it like that. Yeah, he played around with it. They were, hey, we just go in and take it if we wanted to, right? Kind of thing. But the reality is, it's a bargaining chip. People have bought land from people all over the place. It's happened through history all over the place. No one wants to talk about it. They just want to try to tell everybody Trump can't buy Greenland, right? Because it's Trump. But Trump realizes that it's a piece of real estate that's needed for the United States, for our security, for one. It also has minerals there that we could use, as long as we don't tear the place up, right? Everybody's worried about tearing places up, but there'll be a small little spot in Greenland where they'll find something, and they'll probably go after it. And then we'll end up with some more aircraft up there, and probably some radars and things like that. Because if we didn't do it, China would do it, or Russia would do it. Just as China had their Belt and Road Initiative cut across Europe, actually cut across Asia and then cut across Africa, and it had inroads over to Europe through Turkey that it could get to there. And then they were starting to try to work into South America, which is now our hemisphere. Um, they don't like it when we work into their hemisphere. They wouldn't like it if we went and tried to take over Thailand, right? They wouldn't like that because it's right on their doorstep. Well, we didn't like it when they tried to get influence in Venezuela. So you see the difference. If you that's where we're at with this. Now, if your whole big deal is you just don't like Trump, you don't like anything he does, I don't know what to tell you there. But that's kind of the big snapshot picture of it. Would it be nice if we could do everything a lot easier and soft and just say, "Hey guys, can you do this?" and they do it? That would be great. But he kind of carries a big stick. He talks a big talk, and he generally gets what he wants. And most of the time, he's doing it for the United States, regardless of what many of you think out there. He's trying to do what he thinks is best for the United States. I didn't agree hardly with anything that Biden did, but I do believe at least whoever was running the Biden show that they were trying to do what they thought was best for the United States based on their beliefs, right? So I can complain about that just as you can complain about Trump. All right. So just think about that. Just depends. That's where I was. I would like it to be more in the middle between the two sides. Um, and those of you who think that Trump is this fascist way over here, you he was a liberal just a few years ago. He's in the middle somewhere there. He's just one of those guys that goes after everything every time he goes after it, and he has ideas of what he wants and what he thinks is going to happen. And he knows Greenland's a part of it, and that we, for about 40 years now, the Danish have been warned that the Chinese and the Russians were trying to influence in there and take over, and they did nothing. Well, the Danish aren't big enough to do anything. It's not their fault. They're a small country, right? They don't have a lot of people, but we are. We're able to do something about it, and it appears that that's what President Trump is going to be trying to do with this. So now he showed up at Davos. Now, Davos is this big place where the World Economic Forum gets together and all the elites, they fly in on their jets. They complain about climate change while they fly in on their private jets and do all that stuff. And they argue over all kinds of different things. If you remember yesterday, I explained that Europe is failing. And what I mean by failing is they've been failing for decades. Their influence in the world has taken a back seat to Russia, China, United States, even South America at times, and sometimes even places in Africa. It's taken a back seat to it. So a lot of the people in Europe don't like that. And I'm not talking the people, right? We're talking the people who are in charge don't like that. So over the last 40 years, they've come up with this idea of how they're going to take over the globe, basically, and their influence and power becomes bigger because that's the way they think history has seen it, as Europe as being the power. And it has been in history, if you really kind of look back over the last 500 to 1,000 to maybe even 2,000 years or more. Europe has been the hub of power in the world, but it isn't anymore, right? They've actually become kind of a weakling. And without us in NATO and being next to them as the uh, wicked stepbrother, so to speak, next to them, helping them out, they struggle. They have problems. They don't have manufacturing. They don't have the things they need. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have. They're just falling apart, and they've done that to themselves. Um, with their immigration policies, just like our immigration policies haven't been great for our country. Immigration's great, but we got to bring in, get people to get into society and do that kind of thing. I'm all for more numbers of bringing more people in. That's great. I think that's good too. But when other countries send in all their bad people, and now we found that out this week also, that Mexico has had a sorted plan specifically through plenty of their people in their government to send us their bad people. And why? Because that would slowly deteriorate the United States. And they've even stated so they could get back California and New Mexico and parts of Texas. That's their government stating that. How come we never heard about that till this week? Why did that not come out until this new book is coming out today, right? The Silent Coup is what it's called. Well, that's part of it. Did you know that the Chinese have 6 consulates in the United States, but Mexico has 30? Why is that? Well, that's because they even have some of their politicians living in our country working on this, trying to slowly, quietly get back what is theirs as they overrun the southwestern portion of the United States. Okay, I'm all for these conspiracy theories, but that's actual fact of what's happening. And that's actually what their government is saying. Okay, so that's facts. Those are facts. I can't do anything about that. But this has been happening for decades now all over the world, trying to get back at the United States to try because China wants to take over. Mexico wants more power of what they have. They want some of their land back. They call it that it was taken from them. Why? Because we have idiots roaming around telling everybody and their brother that all the land is stolen from everybody, and it is stole from everybody. That's how it works. That's how it worked years ago. We don't really do that now. We buy it like we may buy Greenland, but we don't go in and we take over Venezuela and just take the country over. We may go in and get rid of their leader so they can get a leader in there to help them, but we're not taking over Venezuela. We didn't take over Cuba when we could have. We didn't do any of that, right? We could have done that anytime in the last 20, 30, 40 years. We didn't do any of that. That's not the point of it. The point is keeping everything quiet, consistent, and secure. And that's for us. Luckily for us, we have our own hemisphere. We're not stuck in the hemisphere with Europe and Asia stuck there next to each other, right next to each other, and Africa right there, that the triangle of the Middle East right in between all of that, right? Where all these things have been happening. We've been lucky to be almost on our own island. Well, now we do have people around us with Mexico and Canada and, of course, South America. That's the hemisphere we want to keep solid. And Greenland is part of that because they are in the northern hemisphere of North America. Greenland is technically, if you look at it on a map. And so that's kind of how that works out. And he's been pushing for all of this whole time so that we can be more secure and we can still help people. We still want to help people, but we can be more secure of where we are, and you can be more secure sitting in your home on a daily basis because the United States can still be one of the bigger powers in the world, if not the biggest. Instead, Europe wants to be that biggest power. They won't tell you that. They'll tell you they're all in it together and this, that, but that hasn't worked out for them, has it? Once they tried to join up with each other 20 years ago, it's not worked out really well for them at all. It's still been going downhill. Nothing's changed for them other than they crow that they're better. And it's not really happened for them. Europe is not what it was in World War II or World War I or before that. It just isn't. Everything has moved and changed. Now China's the big boy. The United States is the big boy. All right. When Russia's kind of over there on the side, and then Europe's even below that when it comes to power. And Europe don't like being down there anymore, right? Just as President Trump doesn't want us to be down there anymore. But the people in Europe want everybody to come together so that they rise in their power and they still have some control. Isn't it always about power and control? It always seems like it's about power and control one way or the other. And in reality, that's what Trump's trying to do. He's trying to make sure the United States has power and control over its own people and that you still have freedoms to do what you want to do. So that's still over power and control, too. And the same thing with the Republicans going at the Democrats and the Democrats going at the Republicans. They think they all know what they want and got it, and they want their power and their control over everything. And that's why we end up in our arguments that we do a lot of the times instead of working together for the best of the country one way or the other, right? All right, so let's hit some of these highlights here on some of the big news. So Trump's there, right? I like to read the headlines first because the headlines kind of give you a good idea, and they give good headlines at the Daily Mail over there. Trump tears into unrecognizable Europe at Davos, claiming it would be speaking German and Japanese without U.S. protection as he demands Greenland talks and slams ungrateful Denmark. Now, there's some truth to be said in there, and some of that's just to push some buttons. That's for sure. Definitely Europe is unrecognizable from what it was 50 to 75 years ago. It just isn't the same. And he's right. If we hadn't come to the rescue in both of them, that doesn't mean we should lord over them like that. He's just saying you need to be more grateful about it, I think is what he's really trying to get for. Well, he's called Denmark ungrateful for that. And then it shows pictures of course, the Europeans all being smug and upset, right? Trump's journey to Europe was delayed by hours after something happened on the plane. Air Force One had to return. And then after a short delay, they took off due to some kind of issue on board. So maybe it was a power issue, something like that. It's hard to say. Doesn't say here. So that's the big news right now. Davos is going on. I'm sure we're going to hear a lot of news about that by the end of the day. Here's some more breaking news. Trump rules out taking Greenland by force, sparking stock market rally. There you go. So yesterday he said, "Well, we'll do what we got to do," and everybody took that as he's going to power in there with all of our troops, and we're just going to take over the country of Greenland. And the stock market went in the tank. So today he kind of told everybody, no, we're not doing that, which is exactly what he meant from the beginning. And that we're trying to buy the country if we possibly can. And you can go through hundreds of details just in the United States on how we bought the Louisiana Purchase. Parts of Mexico were bought from Mexico to us. And all these things have happened over the last 200, 300 years. That's just in the last 2 or 300 years. So this is not out of the ordinary, despite the fact that everybody will tell you that. Let's see. I think what was it? The Virgin Islands we bought just 50 years ago or whatever it was. That was the last time we bought something from somebody. Guam, I believe, was bought. A couple places, or American Samoa, one of those two was bought. So this happens. This happens. Now, is it as big as Greenland and it's such a big story? No, because I'm guessing if Biden came out with this story, it wouldn't be near the story it was. But with Trump doing it, then everything is over the top and the world is coming to an end and the sky is falling. Because that's what happens every time he opens his mouth. And when you have to try to get your power out of this and make something out of it, you're going to do that every time he speaks, unfortunately. It says President Donald Trump has vowed not to take Greenland by force. Cooing signs of relief from other NATO leaders. Now, they knew this. And you can't tell me they didn't know this. They already knew he was not going to do that. They already knew he was just being bold and brash and braggadocious and that he's just trying to get what he's trying to get. They all knew that. But then, of course, on their side, they got to look big. So they got to come out and say, oh, Trump's such a bad person. This is how the world leaders go at each other. How come before every ceasefire, both sides bomb each other real bad before the ceasefire starts? Because they got to look like they're getting something and they still have power over the other person before a ceasefire starts. When no negotiations start, they do the same thing. They bomb each other pretty bad. We've been seeing this time after time after time through history. All these kind of things. When we took Maduro and the vice president took over, what did she do? She sent troops into the street along with cops, and they started banging on people's doors and going after people that were in the streets to show she had power, right? Got to show you got power immediately instead of just trying to help the people, right? And this is normal. This is what's been seen in the world for ever, for the history of the world. One person is trying to take over power of somebody else. And power is the devil's game, is it not? And that game is being played constantly. And we see it in our politicians, while those of us sitting at home can't understand why it keeps going on. But that's basically it. It's power, it's money, it's prestige, and it's like a drug. And once you get that drug, there's a reason why almost every single person in government that goes up there ends up becoming millionaires and having tons of money. It's a drug, right? So that's where Davos is in Switzerland, if you didn't know. That's where the big event is every year. And it's in January every year. And they all get together so they can all show off their fancy jets and act like they're better than the rest of us. That's kind of how that works. Let's see what else we got going on here. Nothing real major. I mean, we're back to the coach in Michigan. Remember the coach, Michigan player accuses teammates of blackmailing disgraced coach Sharon Moore over his affair with staffer. So the coach is having an affair with one of his staffers, which is going to lead to, a divorce and all that stuff. And then, of course, he ended up having to quit because he was having an affair. But it appears some of the teammates were blackmailing the coach so they wouldn't say anything. And so there was a lot more going on here than just the coach quitting and having an affair, right? There were other people behind it. I wonder how many of those teammates are going to be in trouble and how many are going to go to jail or have something because they blackmailed the coach like that. And of course, the coach wants to hide it, so he probably paid him if that's what it was, or gave him more playing time or whatever it may be. But kind of crazy. One of the big storms, of course, millions warned just 9 minutes outside could be deadly as an Arctic bomb unloads on America with up to 20 inches of snow. And yes, there's a big storm coming. We got to keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens in Indiana. Right now, still kind of up in the air officially, but leaning more and more each model run towards a little bit more snow here than what it originally looked like. And originally, one model showed lots of snow and one model showed no snow. Hard to make a decision on that as a forecaster. When one says nothing and the other one says yes, you're going to get 9 inches, right? So they're coming closer together to each other now, and we'll know in the next 24 to 48 hours definitely what's going to happen Saturday and Sunday. So here we are on Wednesday, worried about it. It's definitely going to hammer the South pretty good, either Tennessee or Kentucky, it looks like right now. So that's where you're going. Trump says prosecutions are coming over the rigged 2020 election in a stunning off-script moment at Davos. So you know how he goes. He's not like Biden and comes out and he does a 2-minute script and then leaves, no questions, right? Trump comes out and he does an hour, and he'll talk and he'll talk. He'll say stuff off script. He'll do all kinds of things. He'll answer questions. He'll berate somebody. He'll shoot somebody down. Then he'll praise somebody he wants to praise. He'll do all this. He'll go on for an hour or 2 hours at a time every single day. Biden would come out once every 3 weeks and say something for 2 minutes and then leave, right? That's how it worked. But apparently, President Trump is less cognitive than President Biden was. At least if you're a liberal, that's the way they think anyway. It says here, President Donald Trump hinted Wednesday that people would be prosecuted over their roles in the 2020 election, which he still falsely claims was rigged. It says still falsely claims was rigged, but we're hearing more and more information about stuff that was hidden from the American people to make it look like it was a perfect election, right? Now, give it 24 hours, 48 hours, give it some time. Well, we've given it 4 or 5 years now, and more of this stuff is coming out, information about what actually possibly happened. And people who are now no longer afraid to talk are starting to talk about how they were involved in it. My guess is still nothing's going to happen. We're just going to hear about it and we'll bellyache about it for a while and it'll go away just like everything else, unfortunately. Why? Power, money, and greed. There you go. Trump reveals details of secret sonic weapon used in Venezuela raid. This must have been during his speak too. Nobody else has it, he says. I would say Chinese might have something like that. That's for sure. Russia, maybe not. They've had their hands full lately. They probably haven't had time to develop something like that specifically, although China probably knows about it because they've stolen it from us. Yeah, that's why they may have it. Let's see. The Supreme Court heard 2 cases regarding the participation of transgender athletes in women's sports pertaining to students at K through 12 and college level last week. And we'll have to see what happens on that. He kind of downgraded some of the Supreme Court justices for supporting trans athletes. It's trans athletes can be trans athletes. They just can't compete against other athletes because they have an advantage. Maybe there should be a third league. Maybe there should be a trans league. If that's what you want, go for it. Have fun with it. But a guy who says he's a gal shouldn't be able to compete against gals. Just sorry. You may not like that, but that's the way I feel. And that has nothing to do with the trans person. Just start your own league and go play. Yeah, there you go. What else did he have to say? Boy, there's a whole bunch of stuff here of what Trump was saying. Trump hits out at Britain's catastrophic oil and gas decisions as he stokes mounting feud with the leader. And the transatlantic relations are heading for new lows amid the high-stakes wrangling between NATO allies. You see what he's doing? He's pushing everybody around. He's being the bully on the block with words. And none of them like it because they think they're the bullies on their blocks in their big own countries. And so they got to look like they are. So they shoot back. But in reality, probably in the back channels, they're all talking to each other. I guess Emmanuel Macron had a severely bloodshot eye, and it's a condition that can be caused by a slap to the face. What? All right. Now we're jumping out there, the top surgeon says. The French premier, who has been seen sporting mirrored aviation-style sunglasses, has previously admitted he is suffering an eye condition that is completely harmless. And there's a picture, and his eyes a bit bloodshot. Doctor says he got hit in the face. Well, maybe. Maybe he did. Maybe he didn't. Who knows? Maybe he bumped into something. Who knows? Well, we're going to read too much in this. Let's get a doctor in there. We got to worry about that, right? So yesterday, Trump was going pretty wild and wacko about everybody too. He talked about Trudeau, how Trudeau was no longer Canada's governor, was no longer the governor of the state of Canada. Still funny, folks. It's still funny. It's not true. We're not trying to take over Canada, but it's still funny. And the climate change hoax guy, Bill Gates, he cracked jokes about him and how Macron was going to about to lose power. So that's what he was joking about yesterday before he even got there. What did we know anything about the U-turn due to onboard scare? Let me see if I can find out some info on that one real quick. The onboard scare of Trump, it took off from Washington, got out over the Atlantic, had to turn around, come back. Then it headed out shortly thereafter. Onboard electrical issue that plunged part of the aircraft into darkness. I can see why you would turn around with that, especially since you were so close. Maybe it was just a fuse. I don't know. I'm not a jet guy. I assume they work like a house. Maybe a fuse went out. They went back to make sure everything was good, safe. You got the president on board. You don't want to mess with that. Apparently, Carolyn Levitt made a joke on the fight about the jet Trump had been gifted by Qatar, sounding much better right now. That's funny too. Come on, that's funny. The plane was expected to land in Zurich. Okay, so it's just telling me the story about he's already there in Zurich. He's already there in Davos, and he's doing that. All right, who knows anything about this? The hilarious drunk Victoria Beckham dancing videos go viral as fans point out how happy Nicola Peltz looks to be with her. Okay, great. You know what I think about this? Nothing. Who cares? Move on. So, I guess they did a dramatic FBI raid on Jake Paul's $8 million Calabasas mansion. His own mom reveals explosive, never before told full story. And you can find all the details at the Daily Mail. I don't care about that either. Here's a weird one. The cause of death revealed for chess grandmaster who died unexpectedly at age 29. Was found dead in his house on the couch in Charlotte, North Carolina by friend and fellow grandmaster Oleksandr Bortnik, who went to check on him on October 19th. So it was last year. He was just 29 years old. I wonder what happened to the guy. Let me see here real quick. Was found dead on the couch. At the time, police confirmed he may have committed suicide or accidentally overdosed, as they do not find signs of foul play. According to toxicology now, he had methamphetamine, you know what I mean, amphetamine, hydroxamide. Yeah, he had a whole bunch of stuff in his system. The first two are synthetic stimulants, while the latter two are primary active compounds found in kratom, a plant native to Southeast Asia with opioid-like effects. His body couldn't take it. He took too much of whatever it was, and he couldn't take it. 29 years old, grand chess master. Guy knew what he was doing. He was smart, knew chess. So here we go. A daily dose of vitamin D during the winter can help protect against catching the flu, study shows, right? Taking vitamin D supplement throughout the winter really can help protect you against the flu. Promising new research is found, and I have been taking it. My doctors have been giving me vitamin D. Oh, look at this. I didn't even realize some of you guys were in there talking. I'm sorry about that, guys. Ray says he's going to prepare for the storm just in case we get a good amount of snow, get plenty of fuel for his generator and his snowblower. Definitely do that, Ray. Especially Ray's on the south side of town, so he's closer to the storm. He's just a few miles closer, but he's closer. And then Ray says, boiler up. B Ranger 1980. Amen. Amen on that. So getting ready for the storms. Is that Roger? That is Roger. B.R. Enger. Does that mean something, Roger? B Ranger 1980? There's got to be something on there for that, right? Let me know what that means on there for those that are in the chat right now. I'm glad I checked it out. Oh, here it is. I can only hope for some snow, he says. That's Roger on that one. Well, what's B Ranger mean, Roger? Tell me what it means. Chat in there. I think you got to wait 60 seconds before you chat back. I don't know why that is, but you got to do that. But if you see it there, let me know what your B Ranger 1980 means. Now, 1980. Oh, there we go. Got it. Brenda and Roger. That's what it means. I should have known that. I don't know what I was thinking. And she's always going to lead the way because Roger's like me. We just cower behind our wives and walk along. Yes, dear. Yes, dear. We have great wives. It's awesome. Both of us have been lucky. We've been married a long time, have great kids and grandkids, um, and we're pretty good friends. So, yep. Oh, he put yep on there. He definitely knows he cowers behind his wife. So, Roger's an Air Force veteran, and I am a Marine Corps veteran, and we know who our sergeant majors are in our lives, and they are our wives, and that's the way it works. With the ultimate king is the Prince of Peace, of course, for us. So that's how that works. It's good to see you guys in there. I get to talk with somebody here and chat with a couple people. And we'll keep working on the story. Roger, I'll have another update on the actual storm probably in 45 minutes or so. I think the model will be finished, and we'll be able to take a look at that and figure out where the new updated 6 hour. It does a new one every 6 hours. Roger says, "Happy wife, happy life." There you go. We got that one. Always good on that front. So, back to some of the headlines real quick here. I got to leave that up so I can see the chat, so I know you guys are in there. I'm gonna have to put it up over here so I can see it. I'm learning all the aspects of this, Roger and Ray, and everyone who's watching right now. There's 3 or 4 of you out there. Of how do I know if I'm talking? Is my video getting out? Yesterday, I did about 45 minutes of no audio. And I figured it out after 10 minutes that I wasn't on, but it took another half hour to figure out I needed to turn YouTube off and turn it back on, get the microphone to work right. Today, everything's working good. I'm getting to chat with people. We're gonna have to figure out how to get some phones hooked into here so we can do that too. But when I start to look at different pages, I lose my picture of what's on here, and I got to look over here to the side, which isn't on the same time frame, right? It's got the delay in it like you get at home. So let's hit some more of the news here. What else do we got going on here? I don't care about actresses and what they've been doing. I do get a kick out of sometimes like the Daily Mail shows these pictures of actresses and actors who are like in their 70s or 80s, and they're like, who are they now? Who were they? I do get a kick out of that kind of stuff, but I don't care what their opinion is, just like they don't care what my opinion is. And some of you don't care what my opinion is either. Oh, he says he thinks Alex is with us now. That's cool. That'd be great. Alex, good to talk to you, brother. I know Alex has an opinion or two, just one or two, maybe, if you know Alex. Good to see you. Is Alex still in the warm weather down there to the south? He's enjoying himself this winter, and he's going to stay down there with the cold weather coming back up here. I'm pretty sure is what's going to happen for Alex. Oh, Princess Kate, things like that. For some of you, that's important. For most of us, we don't care that much about it. All right. Those were the major things going on. Was, of course, Davos. Are we going to attack Iran? Are we going to do anything along those lines? Well, the aircraft carrier is in the area. How do we know they're in the area? They turned off their transponders, so nobody knows where they are unless you have a satellite picture or a drone overhead, right? That's how that works. Well, here's a tragic story here. Tourist helicopter vanishes over Japanese volcano with wreckage spotted inside the crater, unfortunately. Yeah, there's a picture of the helicopter in the crater. Wreckage of an aircraft has been spotted inside a crater of one of Japan's most active volcanoes after a tourist helicopter vanished during a sightseeing tour. The helicopter had been carrying 3 passengers on Tuesday when it took off from the Aso Kudli Dominion Zoo in Aso City at 10:52 local time for just a 10-minute tour, and something happened with the helo and it went down, unfortunately. And it's inside the crater, but it's on a spot where there's nothing there, so maybe they'll find something, maybe they won't with that, on that front. Let's see what else is going on. Extreme snowfall buries town in far east Russia after worst blizzards in a decade. And I want to say it is far east Russia. It is cold. It is snowy there. They maybe haven't had that much snow in a decade, but they get tons of snow anyway at that spot. Heaviest snowfall in 60 years, but they're talking 7 feet of snow here. So what's that mean? They get 3 or 4 feet pretty consistently in that place. Um, Closed roads in China. Are we hearing about climate change? Hold on a second. Back the bus up. Where's our climate change freaks out there? Come on, tell me about climate change. You can't because it's like zero outside. You can't say anything like that. And now I will tell you the story that I've told all my friends about your climate change stuff. It first starts with the story about the scientist who used to go down to Antarctica. And this is when I first went down there in the early 2000s. And the scientist, this is when climate change was first starting to pick up. The scientists had to come up with something when they went back to the States so that they could come back and keep doing research. If they didn't come back with something, they would not get more money to come back. That's kind of how it started. And it was a going joke of what they would come up with this year. Well, what are they going to come up with? They don't have anything, but they'll say that this number shows that this might be there and they need to do more research to get that so they could come back to Antarctica and do more research. And there's nothing wrong with research, but it's kind of how it started out. Well, then who got a hold of it? The politicians did. As soon as the politicians got a hold of that, then it turned into money for us to give to them so they could go and do and have and try to take over and do whatever they wanted to. And it got used and abused. So that's kind of how that worked out on that front down in Antarctica and how the climate change got to that. Then it came to, I've been looking at all these charts and on X and all these different places that throw out information about climate change, because there's a lot of people on X that throw out information about climate change. And they kept throwing out these daily charts. Look at these record highs in this place and record highs in those places. So I started doing research into those places. And the record high would be on some island in the middle of the Pacific somewhere, or in the Indian Ocean. In this case, I remember one distinctly in the Indian Ocean. And the weather office had been there, or information had been being gathered there for 7 years. So it was the all-time high set in the last 7 years at that place. But they quoted it as being the all-time record high on this island, right, for climate change reasons. Okay, that was another thing that just kind of poked me right away. Okay, so then I started looking around, and sure enough, it was all over the place. Then I started looking at charts and maps, and they would show, look at how warm the world has been this year, blah, 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 blah. And it would show things like there would be a blue spot over the United States. And I thought to myself, well, why is there a blue spot over the United States, but the entire rest of the chart is red and showing reds? Well, first off, you can move the colors to make them look worse than they are. For instance, if you're just 1 degree over, you can make it look red, right? Or orange, some bad color, even though it's not as bad. But there would be this blue spot over the United States. And the reason that is because it would be cold in the United States, and they couldn't lie to the people in the United States about it. Right? So they would put a blue spot over the United States, and all the rest of the map would be red. And then you would look for the most intense areas. And guess where those areas would be? They would be in places where you didn't have thermometers, like the middle of the Sahara. The hottest the Sahara's ever been. Or it'd be in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, where there's no islands, or the Atlantic Ocean, places where there are very limited actual data coming through. And I started keeping an eye on it and watching it and watching it. And chart after chart after chart showed the exact same things. Only over places the most intense would be over areas where they could not be checked on. And that's how we've gotten to where we've gotten. Does that mean we're not warming? Maybe we are warming. Does that mean climate change? Of course it does, because the climate is constantly changing. When you ask them about history, they'll tell you, oh, yeah, this is awful the way it is. Then when you start to pinpoint them, you find out we're actually in a colder period, and we're much colder than the planet's been most of the history of the planet, based on their numbers of what they see. But why is that not a good thing then? Why shouldn't we go back to where we were? Oh, well, nobody makes money off of that, do they? Have you ever wondered why? I'm sorry, I'm on my climate change soapbox right now. Have you ever wondered why they don't just get out and say, plant trees, 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 trees? Because trees scrub oxygen or carbon dioxide from the atmosphere and create oxygen, right? Why are they not out on their soapboxes doing that? because you can't make $10 off of every tree you plant. That's why. You can plant a tree for 10 cents. It may take 20 years to grow, but you can plant a tree for 10 cents. So you can plant billions of trees for less money, and nobody makes money off of it. I'm off my soapbox on the climate change. Sorry, guys. Sorry, guys. I had to go into it. And some of the guys I talk with all the time have heard me say that before, but it is just annoying. It's annoying. So a lot of people are surprised when they ask me, "Oh, you're a meteorologist. You think of climate change?" And I tell them I think it's a farce. And yeah, there's problems out there, and we should take care of our world. There's no problem with that, but we don't go bankrupt doing that. Some people are stunned by that, but a lot of people are like, "Yeah, I kind of think that's the way it's been going too." So they've lost their pedestal to jump up on because, first off, a lot of what they've been doing has been faked or pushed, massaged to make it look like something they want it to look like. And a lot of us don't realize we've been massaged for decades and decades. If you're 20, you don't realize it. You think this is normal, that one side yells at the other. If you're 60 like me, you've noticed it for 40 years that one side yells at the other more than the other, and that one side has controlled the media more than the other. And you've seen that. So you've seen it. And you understand it a bit more. And you'll get there eventually too, because when I was 20, I was an idiot. So I did a lot of stupid things. Anybody up there raising a raise of hands? Idiot when you were 20? Okay. I see you. I see you, Ray. I see you with your hand raised. All right. What other kind of great news we got going on here? Um, luckily, right now, as of right now, we haven't heard anything from China. And why I say luckily about that is it has me worried. Um, when Maduro was taken, China put out something there about how they were upset about it, but we haven't heard anything. It's been over 2 weeks now. They've been deathly quiet, which has me a little bit worried on that. Now, that could be good that nothing's going on, but that could be good that something's going on. And we have so many other things happening in the world that there's a possibility that something could happen there. So China's got me a little worried there. I'm worried we're backing Russia into a corner, the Europeans are, by telling them that they're going to attack and that they're going to come in and help Europe at times. One day they say that, the next day they don't say that. We've been trying. You can see Trump is trying to keep us out of it, trying to find a way to get them together to talk, and they get close and then they fall apart. Here's one of the new news stories that just popped up. Putin ally posts cryptic messages about Ukraine's fate and warns against provoking Daddy Trump. So now even the Russians are poking fun at everybody else. That's not good either way. But why would Russia, who can't take Ukraine, attack the rest of Europe unless they were going to go nuclear with it? They can't, because they can't take the rest of Europe because they can't take Ukraine. And that's with, not as much help as Ukraine could have had. But we can't just go diving in there because then it could go nuclear. So you're damned if you do and damned if you don't, so to speak, on this front. There is no proper way to go about it. All right. I think in my mind. So trying to talk and get them together and get them to stop killing each other is maybe the best route to go, but maybe not. It's hard to say. But I guarantee you, if we started lobbing bombs into Moscow or into Russia, it would go south quick. Right? If we started putting troops on the ground in Ukraine, it would go south quick. And Russia knows that. So President Trump knew that. President Biden knew that too. Although, what did President Biden do? He talked the big talk. And President Trump has done the same thing, talk the big talk. We'll do this if we have to, right? And we probably would back it up if we had to. And that kind of keeps that mutual destruction kind of idea in both places' heads. So back to some of the breaking news with Trump blinking on Greenland military action. He didn't blink on the Greenland military action. If you thought he was going into Greenland militarily, you do not know what you're talking about. He swears loyalty to NATO, which he has always done that. He said, we'll be there if you need us, but you need to start paying for your own stuff. But he said the tariff gun is ready to go if you're not going to get on the side about Greenland. So there you go. We'll see how that all comes forward. All right. So there we go. It's 11 o'clock. It's 11 o'clock already. talked a whole bunch about weather so far. We talked a whole bunch about the Purdue game last night that did not go well. They ended terribly. We just talked about a lot around the world. Let's hit a couple highlights of where the weather's at right now before I get into it. End of the hour, the next 45 minutes or so, we get into a lot of it. All right. Let's see what the temperature is right now. There we go. Showing 36 degrees right now. Cloudy skies. Winds are 13 miles an hour. Again, heading up to near 40 today, all depending on the sun behind the system that is popping through the area right now. We look at the quick shot at the radar, and you can see most of the snow has already cleared us. It wasn't a lot of snow as it was, and then there's nothing back into Illinois showing up on the radar. When we look at the satellite picture, you can see the little wave right there kind of coming through and passing over. Looks like there's still one little band of clouds right there just across the state line. Not showing up anything on the radar, but some cloud cover with Lafayette being right here. So this little spot right there trying to press in the next hour or two. And then this batch of cloudiness will come in later tonight. It'll bring another chance for some flurries or light snow. And we're going to get into this open area here this afternoon pretty decently for most of us with these short periods of these little streaks coming through. And that'll help warm us up, get us up near 40 since we're already at, 36 there on that one. Let's see what it's officially out at the airport right now. Update at 16:01 Zulu, which was just right now, basically. 35 degrees reported at the airport officially, and now there's only a couple places reporting snow still left. Rensselaer still reported a little bit of snow the last time they reported. What you will get with this sometimes is for instance, let's say PLD. I don't even know who PLD is off the top of my head, but that observation, once they get past a certain point, it goes blank like this, or you may get just winds out of it. But as of 16:01, the last observations from these places all reported this different weather right here. So let's go to the models real quick. Let's see on the short range if it's showing any more of the potential for light snow tonight, right? So here's the HRR right there. I'm going to go back in and zoom in real close to us, real close here. So now remember the HRR, the HRRR, high resolution rapid refresh, updates every hour, but every 6 hours it puts out a 48-hour model, but every hour it puts out an 18-hour model, which will get us through basically tomorrow morning, right? Let's see on the 14Z what it does for any snowfall tonight. For the flurries, is it start? Yep, it is starting to pick it up, bringing it in closer to us. I think on the 12Z it had it up in here, right? And the NAM actually brought the snow down across us. As a matter of fact, what's the NAM nest look like? It shows it a little farther to the north still tomorrow morning during that time frame. Or this is actually this morning. There we go. There it is. Notice there's a few flurries right around Lafayette tomorrow morning on the NAM nest. But when you go back to the HRR at the same time, now it's starting to pick it up on this newer run. This is the 12Z. There you go. And it shows the potential for some flurries in the morning hours. This is midnight, 11 o'clock tonight. And then it kind of waves through. And then nothing after that. After tomorrow morning, looks like the last decent chances are around. What is that? That's about 10 Zulu, which is 5 in the morning tomorrow morning. So it looks like most of the flurries and light snow want to clear out. Not any accumulations here. Let's take a look at it. See, there you go. Doesn't even show any accumulations. So you're talking some flurries and a dusting more than anything else. Probably what just happened for most of us in the last hour or so as those clouds and the light snow went through. So that's what you're looking at least on the front and the short range there on the model on that front. So there's your weather for right now. And again, big cold coming later in the week, again, coming right back. This may be the warmest day for the rest of the month. It might be February again before we get above freezing after today. I'll take a look at those numbers and all the details on that coming up in about a half hour when I think most of the runs will have an extended forecast done with them. So that's kind of how that works. So like the North American model, European puts out something every 6 hours, and it's done around 11 to 12 every day. Right. That's and then it'll be done. There'll be another model run that comes out, and that'll be done between like 5 and 6. And then tonight there'll be another one. It'll be done between 11 tonight and midnight. And that's kind of every 6 hours. That's how those runs they put out, and they put out longer forecasts for like 2 weeks. Some of those do, but like the HER comes out every hour, and every 6 hours it puts out 48-hour forecasts, and every hour it puts out an 18-hour forecast. I believe is how it works. It might be a 36-hour forecast on the sixes, but it's a day and a half or so, and it's more detailed, and it's constantly putting something in there. So those are some of the major models that we do use when it comes to what we're looking at there on that front. uh, let's see who we got on here. Oh, Roger says anything about the thousands of Iranians being killed. I didn't see anything in that news right there. The last I heard was they said, Roger, that there were 5,000 killed. That's what the Iranians said, right? But the lowest now that you're hearing from places that are outside the Iranian government is 15,000. At least 15,000, upwards of 30,000 people they killed. So, did we just pause this? We're going to get past Davos, and then we're just going to bang the heck out of that place? I don't know. It's hard to say. It sure seems like that's what we set up. They paused a little bit, but they're still doing stuff to their people. You know they are. And they've still got their internet locked down. I know Elon was trying to open up the Starlink to some people, and there's been a few videos here and there getting out, but generally speaking, they've locked everything down, and people are hiding in their homes now because they're coming after them. So, kind of how it's working. Let me get my hat on my head here. Why does the hat? Anybody ever figured this out? I think it's the Coriolis effect. Now, the Coriolis effect affects the way low pressure systems and high pressure systems move in the atmosphere, right? And in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. So in the northern hemisphere, high pressure systems are clockwise, but in the southern hemisphere, they're counterclockwise. Okay. The hat on your head, does it spin on your head the same way? Does it do that because of the Coriolis effect? Roger would know that. He was a postman, so he should know that's what's going on with that. I would think that's a postal thing, isn't it, Roger? I didn't work for the post office long enough to know that. I only worked for them for 4 to 6 months, and then I stopped. It was a little too much for me, but Roger might know that. Coriolis effect and the hat on your head, because I know postal guys wear these hats all the time. I worked during the summer, so I didn't have to wear one of those. I had an air conditioner in my vehicle. That was pretty good. So that kept it rather cool during the hot weather. So there you go on that front. I don't know about the thousands. Let me see if I can find anything else more about that. I just don't think there's a lot in the last day or two about what's been going on. It looks like they're putting it down a little bit. People are a little scared. They're worried about what's going to happen to them. But there's still plenty of them who want to take back their country. And the question is, are we going to help them or not? And that'll be a big deal. Oh, here's a new one. Trump seizes another Venezuelan-linked oil tanker, and of course, Russia's stomping their feet. You can't do that. You can't do that. And we did that yesterday. That was something we did. We took over one of those again, and then we probably drove it to somewhere so we could get the oil out of it and use it for whatever's needed. But Russia doesn't get it, or gets to use it or sell it or whatever happens to it. And Cuba's going to come to a head here pretty soon, the next couple weeks or so, when they run out of fuel themselves, because they got all their fuel from Venezuela. So, and they're not getting it anymore from there. So, excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. The throat is going again. It's only what, Wednesday? It's only Wednesday and the throat's already going. Oh, this one will throw people into a titty. New Trump gun plan would force buyers to declare sex at birth as activists sour on Pam Bondi. So that covers a little bit of both sides there in that headline, right? It's a gun plan, which makes one side happy. But that same side is not happy because you got to declare your sex at birth. And then the other side gets mad because they don't like what Pam Bondi's doing about all of it. So that one kind of covers both sides. Hey, that, you know what that is? That's 6, 7. Yeah, that's what that story's all about. It's all. Here's another one of these from yesterday. Trump floats self-naming Gulf of America mid crusade for new territory, but he thinks it's too late now. He threw that out yesterday. Gulf of Trump. I've been calling it Gulf of America. I don't think it's that big of a deal. People are so worried about these things. The same people who don't want history to stay the way it is because they want to rewrite history. Don't like that you're changing history in another way. So, uh, okay, sir. Now, this is dependent on the storm, right? The storm that I'm going to talk about here in another 20 minutes or so and what's going to happen. But the headline says, "Plan for days without power. This is not good." And a meteorologist dire warning as Arctic bomb to blast up to 20 inches of snow across bulk of America. Now, the meteorologist who said that might be in a really bad place for snow. So I might give him a little bit of grace there on that. But generally speaking, um, try not to panic everybody, but everything is big. We got to be big and bolder and better, right? You guys watch me because I try to give you exactly what it is and what I see and what I believe in on the forecast. And I try not to oversell it or undersell it too much. Matter of fact, I probably undersell it too much because I've seen too many times the overselling and it never ends up being correct, never ends up being what we think it is. So when you oversell a snowstorm with 20 inches and then you get three, what do people think about you? And then you see this 10 times in a row, you understand what's going on with that, right? Uh, okay, well, we're starting to get some more hints of what happened up there in Minnesota when the Don Lemon and his people took over the sanctuary in a church and tried to take over when the church was going on. And that's a big no no in the United States. There was an aide to America's wokest prosecutor in the crowd, and he was part of the anti-ICE mob who stormed Minnesota's church during Sunday service on Sunday. And those people are in trouble right now, it looks like. I was explaining to somebody yesterday about, I think it was to Craig, about how you remember the people who were praying outside the abortion clinic? This was 2 years ago, 3 years ago, and how they were immediately charged with being there, not trespassing, but they can't protest in front of a private facility like that or something along those lines. They did not even go in the office of that place, and they were charged. These people went into the church and started demonstrating inside the church. We wouldn't allow that in a mosque. We wouldn't allow that in a synagogue. We wouldn't allow that in a church. No matter whose religion it is, we shouldn't allow that. But Don Lemon kept saying he's got First Amendment rights to say and do as he pleases, and he's a reporter and all this. But then he put out 3 hours of data and information that showed that he was kind of part of the whole gaggle in the first place, but he tried to act like he wasn't part of what was going on. And it appears he may be in trouble too, despite his own thoughts that he is safe because he's a reporter. Do you remember the January 6th reporters that went in and only filmed and did nothing else? Some of them were charged. Some of them were charged. Yep. So Mr. Don Lemon's got a little something to worry about. Probably should have just stayed out of the whole mix and not have to worry about it and not go into a religious place. I said this yesterday. Just set up on the side of the road where you're supposed to set up. Get your protest. The cameras are still going to come there and film you and get all your words across there. You don't have to stop traffic. You don't have to bust into people's religious places. You don't have to burn down buildings and things like that. And you hold your credibility a bit more because you're losing credibility with a lot of people. The BLM thing with George Floyd years ago. You lost a lot of credibility when you started burning things down. That's how you lost your credibility on that. Um, it was a shame that that man lost his life, but you lost the focus of what you were trying to get across to people. And because you went overboard on everything, you lost a lot of people in the country. And that's the people in the middle usually. Your side's going to stay there. This side's going to stay there. But there's about 10 to 20% of the country that's in the middle that doesn't mind going one way or the other. I feel like I'm in that, even though I lean this direction, I will go the other way if I want to. And a lot of them are just normal people, just want to be left alone. Just leave me alone. Don't stop fighting, and we'll figure it out. Well, you lose those people when you do that, when you go over the top. And that doesn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you go over the top, the January 6th, the 200 people who jumped up there and attacked the building, idiots, right? They all should have got prison time. The vast majority of them did. The problem was they went after other people who didn't do anything, who just walked through the building after they were let in by the security. There's where it got over the top for Republicans, not the 200 or 300 people who deserved to be in trouble for inciting a riot. No coup, no try to take over the government without weapons. Yes, not a single weapon, not a single gun was taken from anybody because there weren't any. All right, off the soapbox again. Here we go. What else is going on here? That's the Daily Mail. We talked a little bit about the weather. Let's get back to Purdue again, real quick. I just want to hit the highlights of that because it annoyed me last night that I stayed up and watched that. Um, well, I watched it on the internet. How's that? Okay. They just had a rough outing at UCLA, but it looked like they took control of the game. With a minute and a half left in the game, they had a 6-point lead. And UCLA came down and they drained a three. Okay, cuss it to 3 points. But now Purdue's got the ball. They come down the court and there's a turnover. I don't know what the turnover was. I think it was on Braden Smith. I don't know if they double teamed him. I don't know what happened. I haven't seen any of that because I haven't seen any highlights of it. What what does UCLA do? They come right down the court. They score a deuce, cut the lead to 1. Okay, Purdue comes back down. We got the ball now. Okay, we're going to try to push the lead out. Boom, another turnover. What happens? UCLA comes right back down the court, drains a three. Now they have a 2-point lead. They score 8 points in a minute, basically, a minute and a half. They take the lead, and now Purdue's got one last shot, which they missed, which was a three-pointer from CJ Cox, who had played a really good game. But he just missed. He wasn't able to make the last shot. I don't know how tough it was or if it was wide open, and we couldn't get the rebound and get a shot back up to tie the game up, even with a two-pointer. But there were a lot of things that just jumped out at me in this game. First off, they've been playing a little lackluster lately, playing to their competition's levels. A lot of times, maybe it's because it's the middle of the season. They've already played almost 20 games. I can understand that a little bit too. But the other team played their guys almost the entire game. All 5 starters played almost the entire game. There weren't hardly any fouls called in this game, so you weren't going to get any fouls called. Purdue took like 7 free throws, and they only took 2 or 3, I think. But you play to the level of the competition sometimes, and there was an opportunity. Purdue was up by 12 in the first half and could not push it out. Matter of fact, when they got up by 12, I switched over and was looking at some weather stuff. This is probably 10:30 last night, and when I come back at like quarter to 11, all of a sudden the game's tied. And I'm like, what happened? Here was the opportunity to run away with the game, and they let it get tied. So then they got the 6-point lead late in the game, and then the next thought in my process was, don't let them come back, don't let them come back, and boom, 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 within just 4 or 5 minutes, because it took about that long of a period to get the end of the game done. They lost it 69-67. So now 17-2. Nothing wrong with a 17-2 record, but I can already see what's going to happen. People say, see, Purdue's not as good as everybody says they were. They'll push them down to 8th or 9th this week, even if they win against Illinois on Saturday. If they lose against Illinois on Saturday, they'll be ranked 10th, 11th, 12th next week on Monday. You watch. And they'll say, yep, has-beens, done and gone. That being said, I don't mind that too much because people start to forget about you. And I do agree with you want to peak in March, but you still want to try to win the Big Ten, don't you? And you gave away a game that was crucial to you winning the Big Ten. Now you're right back in the pack with everybody else instead of being a game ahead and tied with Nebraska. And you actually would have took the lead outright by a half a game because Nebraska was not playing last night. So you lost that opportunity, that little extra thing that you had, and now you're right back in the group with the other 5 teams that are really good in the Big Ten this year, right? That have a chance at winning the Big Ten. And Fletch was off again last night. He shot 2 for 10. CJ was great. He shot 6 of 11. Braden started off cold, but he got a little hotter in the second half. He was 5 or 13. Trey and Oscar, one was 4 for 6. The other one was 3 for 5. I want to ask, why did they only take 11 shots? I was told before the game, watching all these videos about the 2 teams going at each other, that Purdue would have this huge offensive capability down low, and that they should just keep pounding down low and then expect big games. And then you get 10 points and 6 points from the 2 of them, and 7 rebounds and 4 rebounds. That's and they played 26 minutes and 24 minutes. Okay. That's not what I was expecting. Matter of fact, I don't even remember when Oscar Clough shot. He went well over 12 minutes, I think, in the first half before he even shot. So were they like double teaming him all the time? Were they double teaming whoever got it down in the post and it had to come back out? That could be very strong possibility. So we were taking a lot of outside shots. Took 27 3-pointers. That was almost half of the shots for the team. They only took 60 shots and 27 of them were 3-pointers, and we only made 7. That's like what, 24%? Um, if you shoot just your normal 9, you win the game, right? That's not even the normal team 39%, right? You shoot just 32%, you win the game once you make 2 more of them. So that's all you needed was 9 out of 27. That's 33%. You win the game by what? You win the game. I got to add it up in my head. 4 points, right? Just making 2 of those. That's all it takes. That's how small the margins are sometimes when you allow other teams to hang around and you give them opportunities, they take them. Purdue did the exact same thing to USC on Saturday when USC had taken a lead, but they allowed Purdue to hang around and Purdue kept coming back. And then they just, after the first, because USC almost won that game in the first 10 minutes, but Purdue won the last 30 minutes basically and came back to win that game on Saturday. So now it was flipped. Purdue had a chance to bury them in the first half and didn't do it, and then had a chance to win the game at the end when they were up by 6 and couldn't keep them off and let them score 8 points in the last minute and a half. So that's a lot of points in a minute and a half. 2 threes and a deuce. They didn't miss, and Purdue couldn't make and threw it away twice. So there you go. That's how you lose a ball game. So going to make it hard to win the Big Ten championship with that loss there, because you got to win every one of those in a season like this, with Michigan being so good, with Nebraska being so much better than everybody thought they were going to be. Michigan State's still right there in the mix. Wisconsin's not out of it. A couple other teams that are still only have 1 or 2 losses. Illinois only got 1 loss coming to town on Saturday. That's who's next. So you're going to have to see what happens there. They're number 11 in the country. Their numbers are the same as Purdue. Purdue dropped from 4th to 7th in the KenPom rating, so they dropped 3 spots. They are no longer the number 1 offensive team in the country either, not when you shoot 23% from 3, right? 25% from 3. You can't do that. And you can't shoot 43% on the road. That's what they did in the 2 games, and they were lucky to win 1 of the games. They shot 45% last night total, 25.93% for 3 points. Well, it is what it is. Part of the game. Hopefully, we can come back and do some damage on Saturday and beat Illinois. They'll be favored in that game, but it'll be a much closer game. And Illinois is obviously more of a top-tier team than UCLA is, but UCLA has some great talent. The problem is they only got like 5 guys. Well, they did exactly what they needed yesterday. They played those 5 guys, and it appears the game was slowed down a lot again because Purdue only got 60 shots off. Purdue only got 60 shots off with only 8 turnovers. 8 turnovers, but 2 of them came on 2 of the last 3 times they touched the ball. So only 60 shots. Purdue shoots 70 times, they still win the game. That's a guarantee. You pick the pace up, you run the thing faster, you take advantage of your number 1 offense in the country compared to the other team's poor defense. You slow it down and only get 60 shots and only hold the ball so many times. You run a more offensive or you run a team that keeps you in games when you're the underdog. Underdogs like slower games. That's the way I look at it, and that's the way I've seen it over years and years and years. And look at Coach Payne has used that theory forever because his teams are not always the best team on the court. So he got into that kind of theory of running the play here, 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 and here. When I know, and probably Coach Paint knows, they could run the play here, 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 and be much quicker and get maybe 5 to 10 more possessions per game, which in Purdue's book is another 5 to maybe 15 points, right, in those possessions because of how efficient they are. And UCLA would not have been as efficient, and Purdue probably still wins that game. Say Purdue gets off 66 shots, 6 more shots than they did. Chances are good they would have scored about 7 or 8 more points, but UCLA would only score 2 to 4 more points based on their statistics, and Purdue wins the game still. Okay, just a numbers thing. It's a numbers crunch thing. It's analytics, all that kind of stuff. I'm sure I and there's no one here who in Purdue that doesn't think these boys aren't playing hard though, and they're playing. Braden's banged up, got a banged up knee, that kind of thing. I don't know. Maybe Trey's been a little off too. So we haven't heard of any major things other than when Daniels got hurt last year. Daniel Jacobson got hurt last year and broke his leg. They haven't had anything major. Matter of fact, it's been a while. You remember the year they went to the NCAA championship? Nobody seemed to get hurt that year or the year before that. So they've been doing really good with injuries, but people get dinged up in the season. Braden got smacked twice in the same knee in the USC game the other day, and he got poked in the face real hard on that one last drive that didn't get called for a foul. So that's the kind of thing that can ding up a team, and maybe that's what's happening right now. I mean, we just don't know about it. They haven't told anybody, right? You don't want to get that out too much right before you go into play Illinois. Or maybe they were looking forward ahead to Illinois and didn't take this game as seriously, which I doubt, because they're too senior laden of a team to realize that. But that does not mean that they can't have some down periods during the season. And they're just in that. There was since when they lost the Iowa State game to like the first or second week in January, they were the number one team in the country overall because and they were winning really well. Well, since then, the next 3 or 4 games since then, they've just played like the 20th or 30th best team in the country. And while they won every game, but last night, it just wasn't quite as pristine as it was. Well, maybe they're a little tired, maybe they're a little banged up, maybe somebody's got the flu and we don't even know about it. But the bench played well. The starters didn't play as good as they could have. Let's see what the bench do here. 2, 4, 6, 7 out of 15. So they shot almost 50%. They shot slightly better. And they did not shoot the 3 very well, though. They were 2 of 8. So they were at 25% too. So basically the shooting throughout the entire team was about the same. Guys who shot 50% or better were Jacobson, Benter both of them shot 50%. Oscar Clough was he was at 60%. Trey was at 80%. And CJ Cox was at like 60% or a little under that. So those were the guys who shot the best yesterday. And we'll just have to see if anything happens with them as they come through in the next game coming into Illinois. I'm sure they got in early this morning, flying into Lafayette, and then they probably got today off. They'll probably do a walkthrough tomorrow, maybe hit a practice on Friday pretty good. Maybe coach even just does a couple walkthroughs. Sometimes they do that. I know they do that in baseball a lot of times. They'll just like, hey, no practice today. We're just going to have a walkthrough or we'll just talk about things. Football, same thing. You got to take some time off once in a while. Maybe the boys just need a couple days off. It was a trip out to the West Coast. That can be tiresome too. And time changes, playing games. You're out there for a week. It's not a vacation. You're still working out. So I got a feeling it's more like that middle of the season doldrums. And the doldrums was a weak area of winds in the central Atlantic where the ship never moved and things just didn't happen. So we call it the doldrums. And maybe they're in the doldrums right now. It's middle of the season. Things are rough. We got a lot of things going on. They're on the road. These 2 games, they're only home for 2 of the next 6. So it's like 2, 1 home, 2, 1 home, 2. And so there's like 8 out of 11 games right there. They're on the road almost. So, or 6 of 8 games. There you go. And then they'll come home for a couple games again for a while before they end the season. Now, and February is awful. They've got a really tough schedule in February. All right, so let's go back. Let's take a look at the weather for the last time, I think, here. It's 11:30. I got about a half hour of data here that I can show you, I think. Let's get right into it. Let's go right back to where we always like to start, which is what's happening right now. What are we seeing out there? Well, 37 is what's being reported on the bug from MSN. And MSN says we're going to get up to 41 today. And I think we're going to be close to 40, that's for sure. Degree either side is easy to see. But here's the bad news. That might be the last time we touch 40 for a long time. And it might be the last time we get above freezing is today till the end of the month. As you can see here, the high tomorrow is only 29 with a low of 5. But look at Friday's high, 5, -2, 10, 8, 16, 5, 27. And when you go farther out, more of the same. There's a 30 next Wednesday. Could we scratch our way? But it's 7 in the degrees below zero in the morning. So I'll have to worry about, is that 30 even going to be correct? When you go out to their long range map of the month, you just see lots of single digits, 20s, 23, that kind of thing. So there's just not a lot of warm weather out there. It's going to be below normal temperatures. And we go out to down to this map, and I've explained this map before. The dotted line on the bottom is your average lows, and the dotted line on the top is your average highs on any given day. It's this one starts in March and goes out to right now, which is middle of January, and then shows you what the forecast kind of looks like. So you can see there's been a lot of ups and downs here the last few weeks. We were pretty warm there for a week or two right around Christmas, and then in the middle of January, at the 5th, 6th, 7th, we were really warm, and then we started to fall back to close to normal. And then here we are today, going to be slightly above normal. But then look at this, really cold, a quick little up in early February, and then back to normal. So a big period here where we're going to be below normal after today. We saw a period like that back in December, and we actually got below zero there for a couple days in December. Daily, there was a -4 there on one of the days. And there was lots of ups and downs in the fall. The summer was actually probably slightly below normal for our highs. If you look at those temps in this time frame right here, and then the spring is always ups and downs too. So you see lots of highs above and lots of lows below, and very typical for the fall, which isn't as active as the spring is. The spring is more active than the fall, but it has lots of ups and downs too. What you also notice here is we are right at the time frame where it's the coldest of the year. Uh, Probably starting last week through the end of January is the coldest of the year, and where your highs are only around 33, 34 degrees, generally speaking, and your lows are somewhere down around 15 to 17. But we're going to be much colder than that over the next week or 2 weeks. Corresponds really good with the coldest time of the year. And then it just doesn't show a lot of warm up until the beginning. February 4th shows a really nice warm day, but remember how far out that is, folks. So we'll look at trends here where it gets a little warmer. This also is distinctly right at the end of the 2 weeks of the model, and it kind of goes back closer to normal temperatures in that time frame. So we'll keep an eye on that. But that's a pretty good chart. This is on the MSN's weather bug for Lafayette. I do like that chart a lot for some reason. It's just easy to read, you know. But 37 right now. Winds are out of the southwest at 16 miles an hour. Southwest, a good wind pulls up warmer temperatures for us generally, and it looks like we're going to see more of that as we go through the day today. Let's take a look at the satellite picture, and the clouds are streaming out of the area. We had the snow just kind of come through. Cursor's pointed at Lafayette right there on the chart, and you can see we're moving into the open spot. Now, this is an infrared shot, so you're seeing the yellowish, greenish colors are your real high clouds. The blues are more mid-level clouds. The whites are your lower clouds. And then the darker grays are generally ground. But remember, an infrared shot is taking a picture of the temperatures. Yesterday, we were able to see the zeros and -2s, 3s, and 4s that were in our area yesterday. You could see those as color as the blues on the chart yesterday. So that gave you an indication. We're not seeing that today because it's not nearly as cold. But we can open spots out here in Illinois and back into Missouri, and really nice back out towards Kansas and out towards the west there. When we look at the radar, it's past us already there. The snow has gone by. We're looking pretty good. Lafayette being right about here. And so no more snow on the front, at least for right now. The rest of the day, we look pretty good. Let's go back to the satellite real quick, and let's see if we got a visual in here. This day cloud phase visual I like. And you'll notice at the beginning, it's a little muted. You just get a light yellowish, reddish colors. And then the last couple of shots, when the sun comes up, you start to see the ground easier. But you can see the visual clouds there pretty well. So there's that strip, Lafayette being right here, and there's one little strip of clouds coming through there. And sure enough, if they're low enough, you could still get a flurry out of there, even though they're not showing up on the radar. The radar is showing snow out here to our east now. And then we'll watch these clouds out here to the northwest, trying to rotate into the area for tonight and bring us a chance for some light snow as the next clipper comes in. And here's pretty interesting. Let me stop this out here. This is for you weathered geeks, right? We go out here, take a look at this. Look at the rivers show up. See how warm the water is? and the color difference with fog around it or the ground being so cold around it, you can see the differences in that pretty easily. That's what's pretty cool. But this is not an infrared chart. This is a visual chart, so you're starting to pick that up in different places. Yes, the ground is not blue. It does put a blue tinge on here. For me, it's easier to see. I kind of like that compared to a bunch of greens in one spot. Harder for me to see a lot of times. So it does do that. It does enhance the upper clouds a little bit so you can see the color of those pretty easy too. And you can even see snow on top of the mountains out to the west, even though it's just starting to get some sun out there. Um, a lot of times you can pick out the sun on the ground in this infrared or in this visual shot too. Let's go to the models. Let's see what's going on. The new 15Z is all the way in. Doesn't show any snow for us tonight, right? Really. Well, let's see what where they put it. So here's our snow moving off to our east already this morning. Boom, boom, boom. Front goes through. The little trough goes through with that snow. And then here's this evening. Picks up a chance. Could there be a little bit right there at the beginning? Well, what are we talking? 8 o'clock maybe. But it looks like about 10 o'clock we start picking up a better chance for just a few flurries. Very light snow, very not much. Maybe an isolated icy spot here or there because of that, and just a flurry or two. It looks like with the and it just kind of continues through about 2 in the morning, 3 in the morning, and then the model stops. That's at the 18-hour mark there on that. When you go out to the NAM nest, let's see if the NAM nest is in. Yep, the new NAM nest is in. It's 100% in so far, and it shows a little less of the snow. It doesn't show it quite as far south. It gives us that little brush of stuff. Remember I said early there might be a little something, so this one enhances that just a little bit more, but it's not much of a difference. You're still talking a flurry or just an isolated light shower somewhere. And then it kind of goes through the evening, and it keeps most of the snow to our north. Maybe there's a little bit back in here. I can see a little blue blot spot there, here and there. This is tomorrow morning at like 5 in the morning, and then it kind of clears itself out. So maybe some flurries overnight. And again, keep an eye on some icy conditions here or there. But that'd be very, very hit and miss. Most of the roads will probably be clear because it was so warm today. Yeah, any snow that falls on will be hard pressed. But now here's what I want to notice is towards the end of this, and this is Friday. This will be Thursday evening going into Friday, right? Overnight, Thursday night into Friday. And look how the winds shift. The isobars start coming down straight across the lake, and you see lots of lake effect snows back here. But the direction could be close enough to drag some snow down over towards Grissom and Logansport, maybe Delphi, and maybe an isolated chance getting near us on Friday. It's a possibility, but it looks like it's too far north of us at this point. But we'll watch that. No hindrance here all the way out through Friday evening. No showing up, at least on the bottom half of the system to our south on the NAM nest. So let's go out a little bit on the picture here. Sector selections. Let's go out a little bit bigger. There we go. And still on the NAM nest, we see nothing down here, right? We don't see any influence of the system to our south on Friday evening. All right, that's on the NAM nest. Now let's go to the NAM, which is a little longer, and it's done. And we see a little bit of inklings of it starting out here because we always knew this was going to be Saturday, Sunday, at least as of the last couple of days, it showed that way. And look how it's starting to build up on the North American model now. Boom, boom, boom. This is Saturday afternoon right there. And it now is showing snow over us by Saturday evening at about 7 o'clock. Okay. Big band of ice down here. Heavy snows through Kentucky. Ice, mixture of ice and snow and rain, maybe possibly. This is probably ice and snow mixed. And this is more ice. And then you got some rain to the south of that. So this is Tennessee and Kentucky. Very heavy band of snow through central Kentucky. Now on the North American model showing up for Saturday evening, and our first snows in our area start to fall around that time frame. And then the model only goes out to that point. Now, what does it say for snowfall during that period? It already shows about a half an inch just in that first 3 or 4 hours. Look where the heavy snow is, though, now. Now, the North American model has now shifted from central Tennessee now up to northern Kentucky for where it is for the heaviest snows. right? And then lots of mixture of stuff down south below that. That's why it's not showing as much snow there in that point frame. And a half an inch by Saturday evening, it looks like. So now let's shift over to some of the longer range ones and go back to precipitation, the type. Let's go to the GFS first, because the GFS has been the one that's been the most negative, like nothing's going to happen. And it still doesn't show anything on Saturday. See this? It shows the snow south of us still. And it is out, and then it shows just throwing a little wave of snow over the top of us for a bit. And then the second low that comes through down to the south starts to bring up some more snow on Sunday. That would be about 4 in the morning Sunday. And we're just kind of on the edge of it. All right. So let's see where the heavy snows are with that. That shows us only getting an inch. Now, the previous model showed us at about 5 inches. So you see how we're getting variations on here. But the snow here is now more in southern Kentucky, where last model run was in central Kentucky. Hence, we got into some of this a little bit, where we were seeing 2 to 5 inches, depending on where it was. And it still looks like it's kind of right from Arkansas straight up through Kentucky on this run. Okay, and then it goes farther out, and there's not much else left on there. You don't see it. Looks like there's a system list a little bit here or there. The rest of the month looks almost dead quiet, right? So not much there. Now let's go to the big boy, the one that's been saying we're all death warmed over for everybody. All right. We'll go here. We'll go back to the precipitation so we can see where it is. Different look in the colors on this one, on the European model. But the European model wants to bring snow into us now. That's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon Saturday. So that's closer to what the NAM shows. Doesn't show a lot yet. The heaviest stuff is still far down to the south. And this is starting to intrigue me a little bit. Now look at this, how close the thick band comes up to us. So what I've noticed is a noticeable shift to the north now from the models from this morning. And then it presses over us. I do not like where that went with that. I haven't even looked at the snow yet. You guys are seeing it with me for the first time. This is Sunday morning. All right. Sunday morning, the snow is starting to slow down a little bit, but it's still pretty heavy. And then it dies away a little bit. And what do we say? What does it say it's going to give us? Let's see. Total precipitation accumulation, winter snow accumulations. Shows us at 10 inches. Is that enough for you? 10 inches of snow. Now, again, all track. See where this track is? It's right back into northern Kentucky. So easy to see here. If the track ends up with the heaviest snows being right along the Ohio River, we have a potential for maybe 8 to 10 inches of snow. If it's more central Kentucky, it's probably 2 to 3 to 4 inches maybe. All right. And if it's southern Kentucky into Tennessee, we might get just a dusting to 1 or 2 inches. So all going to be dependent on the track. Now, how far is this? You're talking, 100 to 200 miles apart difference for the track of the low and for the heaviest snowfall to fall. And each run will probably get better and better. What I don't like is the last model seems to have shifted slightly north. So the GFS looks like it shifted slightly south and dried us up a little bit, but the European shifted slightly north, just a hair, and gave us a little more. And then the NAM also shifted north and actually brought us into some snow where it wasn't showing any snow on Saturday at all by that point. So, and it looks like it's making a bullseye across the Ohio River Valley also. So starting to pinpoint it more and more. And there'll be more about that coming up tomorrow, of course, with that. Let's take a look at the temperatures now and see what we're going to see for temperature differences. We're going to go back to the HER. I'm going to leave the big one out there. We'll see what that's like. We'll look at the surface temperatures. And go back to about where we are now. Here we are today up to around 40 degrees, right? 40, low 40s. Overnight, we're going to hover around 30 or so. The flurries try to come in. Where's midnight? Okay, there's midnight. We're back down to 30. We've got a wind coming out of the west at around 20 miles an hour. It's 30 degrees. There's a chance for some flurries overnight. Remember, tomorrow morning, whatever. Nothing major there on that front. But look at the shot of cold that comes in behind it. And now we get cold, and we're going to stay cold for a while. We try to rebound tomorrow during the day into the upper 20s. Maybe even a 30, or maybe we get back to 32 tomorrow if we're lucky. If this little knob is a little more over towards Lafayette, which is right here. So let's call it 28 to 30 for sure. Maybe we see our last 30-degree temperature before February, but right now it looks like it's just off to our west, and then it starts to drop and see how the winds start to shift. These are isobars here. You can see the angles of the wind starting to now come out of the north and the northwest, where here they're still out of the west and from the south earlier in the day. And so we start to see the changes in the temperatures and they just drop, drop, drop. Now we're right about here again, 6 degrees right now for the high temperature. That would be Friday as you go into Friday evening. So here we are, overnight Friday, dropping from the 20s late day Friday to boom, 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 all the way down to zero at 8 o'clock in the morning on Friday with negatives very close to us, -3, only 50 miles away. All right. That's on that front. So you can kind of see the big, big pocket. The high is up here over southern Minnesota. You have -25 degrees, -30 degrees in some places in northern Wisconsin. And all that cold temperature is wanting to come back down here along with the flow across the Great Lakes and coming down to us. A lot of you can see the temperatures, how they're warmer around the backside of the lake because of the lake itself. And if we were able to get into a pattern like that, we might pick up some flurries and light snow from it, but it would keep us a little warmer. That the winds would have to come due north pretty much for us to get that front, though. Let's zoom in a little closer, go back into the close-in section so we can really see those temperatures really good. And there you go. There's Lafayette at 0, Rensselaer's like -3. Looks like over by Wabash and Plymouth and back over that area, -2, Rochester. Um, 23 is not that far below 0 is in southern Wisconsin, and even double digits then at Midway. That looks like Midway right now for -10 on Friday morning. Okay, so that's the her. Let's see what the NAM shows for that same time frame. Shows single digits. It's the timing is slightly different. It doesn't turn the winds north as quickly, so it brings in the colder air as we go through the day. So we're like 8, 9 degrees in the morning, but then look at this. By noon, we're at 4. We're still at 4 degrees at 18 Z, which is 1 in the afternoon. And then by the evening, we're still at 4 degrees. So your high temperature on Friday will probably be about 16, but it'll be at 1 in the morning. And then all day, it'll be 5 degrees, somewhere right around 5 degrees all day, right? You also notice that the double digit cold is not that far away. It shows it in northern Illinois, hence the reason it didn't get quite as cold here. It didn't push the double digit cold down through there Friday morning. But let's see what happens Saturday now as we push out farther now. And here we are Saturday. Now we're dropping off. It's getting cold. And what I don't like is there's no wind at all, right? It's almost dead calm now, right? The good news is the pocket of cold has like receded in temperature. That, in other words, instead of -10 to -15, it's only -7. So it shows us like 3 degrees Saturday morning. And then it continues with a high temperature on Saturday of only around 10 degrees, 10 degrees on Saturday. Now you know why any moisture that comes up from the south, it's definitely going to snow over us, right? Because we're so cold up here at that time frame. Okay, so that's the NAM. Now let's look at the GFS from the same time frame. And it shows us maybe getting up to 12 or 13 that day. And then what does it do? It keeps us in the teens on Sunday. All day Sundays in the teens. Monday, we get a reinforcing shot of some cold behind the low that went by, but we're back in the teens on Tuesday. Teens, teens, teens. Not a lot of variance in temperature here, which means that probably cloud cover. An annoyance. You know that winter annoyance cloud cover we get that everybody hates where you don't see the sun much? That's the kind of thing you're going to see for next week, it looks like. There's a warm day, possibly Tuesday into yeah, it's Tuesday. Tries to push us up to 30 degrees that day. So that might be the only chance that we get to go above freezing after today. Maybe we could scratch 32 out of there. We'll see how that goes. It's a week away, so you never know. And then we just stay in the 20s. There's another day, Wednesday. So Tuesday and Wednesday, this is a little more positive than it was. Every day is still below normal, but getting closer to normal there. And then there's a reinforcing shot later in the week, and here comes some more cold. I can see it sneaking into Iowa again, -10 over there. That's for later next week and into February, and then single digits again there for some teens. So that's the NAM, the GFS. and what it says. So let's see what the European model says. And we go back to the European model for like the next few days. And Friday morning, it's showing 0, -4. It says we'll get down to. But remember, the European model showed us at like -15 to -20 4 days ago. And that's when everybody panicked over the weekend that it was going to be so cold over this weekend. So hesitant on using the European model sometimes for some things. Some things it's really good at. But the temperature, it seems to overdo it. But -1 Friday, overnight -4, possibly same thing Saturday morning, it looks like, and then actually starting to warm up before the sun comes up, but the winds turn easterly, but still only single digits Saturday. Sunday, more of the same, single digit. The winds are out of the north, which leans me to think that the snow can't get here, but we'll see what happens. Single digits again on Monday, down to -3 or 4. And then this one only goes out to next Tuesday at this point, but it shows a pocket of cold over us. Right there, that pocket of cold. That would be Monday, all day Monday, below 0 potential on the European model. So the European model has a lot more snow in it and has a bit more colder temperatures. Not as drastic as it was back over the weekend when it showed -20 for us, but it does show colder temperatures. And lately, the other models have been closer with the temperature when it comes to the extremes like that. But the European model, we got to keep an eye on for the storm. And when we slap the snowfall in there with that, the snow accumulations, you can pinpoint it. Look at that, 10 inches. There you go. 10 inches. But what does it do with the storm? Comes in, presses in on Sunday. That's in the Monday morning. Now we're into Monday afternoon, and it shows 9.9 inches for us and 11.4 for Crawfordsville, 12.6 down near Indy. Okay. That's the European model. And it's now shifted the drier spot up here to the north. Now, yesterday it showed us into 5 to 8 range. So now we're even more than we were yesterday on the European model. And the North American model also picked up its snowfall totals. The GFS did too. The GFS showed us with nothing. Now it's showing us at 2.5 to 3.6 in Crawfordsville. And the NAM shows us at 1 inch to 2 inches. So you can see how you can see so many different variances in the models. How can you pick out something from 1 inch to 10 inches and then give people a good forecast for something that's still 4 days away? Rest of today, Thursday, Friday, and then Saturday it comes into the area with Sunday being our prime day. The European model also starts to snow on Saturday, where the other models don't start it until Sunday, and that has a lot to do with the amounts also too that we may see from the system as it comes through. So a lot to ingest there, a lot of things to talk about. Cold, guarantees going to be cold. Today will be the warmest day you're going to see for a while. Just a couple little spurts of warmth here or there, but generally speaking, everything's going to be below normal through the end of the month, it seems like. There is a big storm to our south. It could influence us pretty easily, or it may just kind of hang down to the south and we could stay out of it for a bit, depending on which model you're looking at. I'm leaning more and more towards we are going to see some kind of more influence than nothing at all. And so that makes me think I should shoot for the middle somewhere, maybe not the 10 inches, but probably more like 4 to 6. We'll keep that in our mind for tomorrow when we talk about it, and when we'll have even closer maps to the actual time frame, and we'll try to make some decisions on it by then. But for tonight, just a trace of stuff, nothing really major out there. 38 degrees right now, heading up towards the low 40s, and lots of cold coming in behind that. So, man, there's a lot of stuff going on there when you look at the weather. And then we see that. Let's look at the latest satellite picture so you can see it there. Put it back into motion real quick. With Lafayette being right there at that spot. So some sunshine this afternoon. A little bit of clouds right now, still lingering. We had some flurries earlier, a little bit of light snow, but nothing accumulated at all, it seems like, for most people. And it's winter. We are at the coldest time of the year, and it's going to be chilly. So be prepared. I think I said this in the first hour. Get out there and help your friends, right? First off, I would take care of your family. Does grandma and grandpa need some help? Do they need some checking on some things? Do they need to, do we need to find out that their space heater is working good? Do we need to find out if anything they're doing is running well to make sure that they're okay, right? So get out there and check on grandma and grandpa. Then maybe it's mom and dad. Maybe mom and dad need to be checked on. Maybe aunt or uncle or your brother or your sisters need some help. Get out and check the family first, right? Then your friends probably keep an eye on them. And of course, your neighbors. Don't forget your neighbors. Maybe you got a neighbor who needs a little help every once in a while. Maybe your neighbor will need some help shoveling some snow this weekend. Something to think about. Also, be precautious if we do get the big snows this weekend of yourself. Make sure you're healthy enough to go out there and shovel snow. Because me right now, I'm not there. That's why I got three grandsons in the house. Okay. The three grandsons get to run outside and do some of the snow now. I don't have to worry about that. I can still do it, but I don't want to push myself too much. Not when I got help right here, paid help too, right? Room and board. So that's how that works out there. We had a lot of big things in the news today. We covered stuff about Trump. I do like just to hit the highlights and talk about stuff. And when you guys chit chat back and forth, Roger was in here, Ray was in here. I talked to Craig earlier this morning. A lot of people are starting to pop in. I see 2 or 3 people at any given time in here, which is kind of nice. We're going to slowly grow the channel, try to figure out if this is too long, it's too short, the time isn't right. It should be earlier in the morning, it should be later. And you just try to find the right spot for it. But it's a chance for you guys to call in and talk weather, sports, news, local stuff. We covered a bunch of local stuff. We still had the judge that had been shot and his wife. That was still in the news. They don't know who that is. Big accident out on I-65 last night around between 3 and 4 o'clock. There was an accident, a rollover. Unfortunately, the driver died. And then like a half hour, 45 minutes later, another accident on the backside when everybody slowed down. A semi ran into some other semis, and that semi driver passed away also. So sad news there. Let's say some prayers for both of those families, and we'll try to figure out another way to slow ourselves down on the highways sometimes that we don't really get to do, and just say some prayers for our friends and our family out there. So that's the roundup for today, Lafayette. Yeah, we had some serious things going on. We had some quiet, fun things. We laughed a little bit about Greenland and laughing about Trump and about other different aspects that were happening in life. And we covered a little bit of everything. I am a pastor at heart. I want to pass blessings on to each and every one of you out there. I want you to stay safe during this cold stint coming up so we don't lose any of you, and just get out there and help some of your friends and relatives if they need it, if you are capable of doing that. So keep sharing your thoughts, your questions, your tips. You can email me at let's talk Lafayette live at gmail.com, right? You can also go to at Let's Talk Lafayette on X. You can find us there. And you obviously can chat here and on YouTube anytime, and go check the show out anytime you want, because as soon as I'm done here, when I click on it, it will matriculate, as President Bush used to say. It'll matriculate over to YouTube as an actual show that you can watch. So you can get in and check it if you didn't get a chance to get in live and chat with me today. It's been great talking with each and every one of you. Have a blessed day. We'll see you tomorrow.